morning, everyone, and welcome to the opening drive on 101 ESPN in St. Louis. We're at 7 o'clock. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Brooke Grimsley is here. Danny Mack is here. Matthew Rocchio is here. I'm Randy Carricker, and thank you very much for joining us on a beautiful Friday Eve. It is 56 degrees, second alert weather, brought to you by us here on 101 ESPN. High today, by the way, as we go through the day, of a beautiful 77 and not a cloud in the sky. So traffic, well, we got a traffic. There's a car on eastbound, no, that's westbound Olive Boulevard in Creve Coeur. Only one car, though, and it was going like 100 miles an hour. If you feel like you need to do that, go ahead and do it. Don't do it.
No.
Traffic is easy for you today. I'm Captain Randy Carricker in 101 ESPN Jetcopter 2. Okay, traffic and weather together for you on the ones.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Was absolutely beautiful, Randy. And you said, I'm going to try to top my good morning because I felt like I did a good job under the circumstances yesterday.
Yes.
We're all kind of battling a little bit of a cold right now.
Even Danny is now. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry. Are you not feeling great either?
I'm not feeling great. Sore throat. Woke up this morning with a sore throat, but so what? You got to be here. You got to be a gamer.
You're a gamer.
I'm a gamer. I'm here.
What the hell?
I'm
We all
happy
got
to be
COVID.
here.
Let's just blow it out here.
Yeah, we all have COVID. It is what it is.
I've been through it. I think I'm on the end of it, but still very nasally. We might as well say that the show is brought to you by Ricola.
Ricola. You got any with you?
I do, yes. I brought enough for everybody today.
Good. Like it. Today on this program, we will have no Greg Amsinger. He's got a tea time this morning. Greg's
important.
got a tea time. Yeah,
Yes.
that's important. But we will hear, and Greg's going to join us tomorrow. That's good. We're going to talk to Todd Lyght, one of the great corners of the greatest show on turf, Rams. He's going to be with us at 8:15, our weekly visit with a member of the 1999 Rams. I always enjoyed Todd Lyght, and coming up at 8:15, when you hear Todd Lyght, you're going to hear a story that you probably aren't aware of that will change the course of history in St. Louis and even the Cardinals.
The Cardinals are involved in this story.
The Cardinals are involved in this story.
Really?
Wow.
Yes. So listen at 8:15.
All right.
That is a tease, Randy. That's an Emmy Award-winning tease.
We're also going to hear from Blues insider from The Athletic, Jeremy Rutherford, later in today's show. The Cardinals clinch at least a 500 season. Let it go. Let it go. Well done. Woo! Well done. 81 wins now. 81 wins on the season, 81-77. A 5-2 victory over the Rockies. Kind of the fix was in last night. You know,
The fix was in.
Oh, totally. For Ryan Helsley?
Yeah. Give him that one-out save.
Yeah.
When I think in 99 it was Jose Lima that was accused of grooving pitches to Sammy Sosa so that Sosa could compete with McGuire in 98.
I remember.
Was that a grooved pitch by Matthew Liberatore last night to set up a save situation?
Could have been.
Kind of felt like
One
he
out,
was
sure
setting up
did.
his friend and teammate.
Yeah.
That might have been his easiest save of the season. Come in, get one out.
One pitch. One time when Raleigh Fingers was with the Padres, he came in with a runner on first against the Cardinals game here in St. Louis, picked the runner off of first, never threw a pitch and got a save.
There were some that felt that some of the pitches were grooved Albert Pujols a couple of years ago. Especially the pitch against Chicago, pinch hitting appearance, his final plate appearance
Labor
against
Day.
the Cubs. Yeah, that was something. I don't think it was grooved. I don't think anybody grooves him. I don't. But stranger things have happened. I mean, what about being competitive? What about trying to get the guy out?
Right. I think you should.
It's your name on the loss.
Right. You don't want to be in the history books for that.
Exactly. I just don't. I don't believe it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Eric Fedde, E-R-I-C-K, Fedde. I'm trying to find Eric Fedde on Baseball Reference yesterday. I'm going E-R-I-C, E-R-I-K, and finally I just did Fedde. And A-R-I-C-K. Eric Fedde goes 7 innings, allows 6 hits, 1 earned run. He walked 1 and struck out 10, and his best start as a Cardinal. And so he'll head into 2025 with a little bit of confidence.
Yes, a little bit of confidence. That's what you needed to see from Eric Fedde, right?
Yeah.
But I know it is September. They're not making the playoffs, so then you start to wonder, too, about the pressure. The lights are not as bright. They're very dim right now over the Cardinals, even though they're able to secure 500. Maybe the lack of pressure would help him in that situation. Either way,
No
you
doubt.
wanted to see that going into next season.
Yeah, I am a big believer in players feeling and responding to pressure. The way the players say, they always said it about the great Cardinal teams of the mid-2000s. their heart rates never got high.
Jim Edmonds.
Yep.
Scott Rowland, Albert, Yachty, Renteria, Larry Walker, Chris Carpenter, Jason Isringhausen. They were big pressure guys.
Yep.
And the thing that I remember about those teams more than anything, and it's something that is not talked about a lot, but Albert would, on a ground ball, would throw to third with the game on the line.
Yeah.
He would take a chance. Yadier Molina would try to pick somebody off at first. That ball could go into right field. You know what I mean? You don't see those kind of guys making those kind of chances anymore because they don't want the pressure of that. And these guys thrived in the pressure. That's what I loved about those teams.
Me too. And to your point, Brooke, when the Cardinals do get into, if they ever would, fortunately, get into a pennant race in September, I don't know that there's a player on the team right now that understands. The manager, I talked about it with Ollie last week about how it's a different sport. We were talking about Fedde, as a matter of fact. But I don't know that the players on this team, and this includes the veterans at first and third base, I think Contreras is probably the only guy that really understands what September pressure is like.
And especially in 2016, when they won the World Series, and thinking of all the pressure that was on that team to win it, because they were very, very good. Obviously, they won the whole thing. But he was a big part of it.
Yep.
And doing it at Wrigley Field, doing it in Chicago, there's a lot of pressure on that individual.
And I do want to say this. I don't have any reservations about Mason Wynn playing in September.
That's the other one I was thinking
games.
about. Yeah.
I don't think Mason Wynn gives a hoot when he's playing, who he's playing against. I think Mason Wynn is going to be great under whatever circumstance you put him under.
I think about, too, when you guys are talking about Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina, their final season, remember? It was them who were able to handle those situations later on in the season. They were the ones who were still coming through later on in the season.
Yeah, big-time guys. Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games.
I will give the pitching staff credit in watching yesterday McGreevy and how the bullpen pitched, and I give them credit with Fedde last night. But two things. One, on the positive part of this, is that you're pitching at Coors Field. That is never easy to pitch at that ballpark. However, they're pitching against a team that's not very good. That is a bad Rockies team. And with nothing on the line, it kind of felt, I said to Randy before you got here, Brooke, off the air, I said, it felt like a spring training game to me. When I watch some of these games, you can just tell the intensity isn't there. Guys are just trying to get through it, make sure they don't get hurt, maybe build on something going into the offseason. But there's not a lot of pressure in those games, and it's a different animal.
And as you mentioned, right now, they are right at the 500 mark, so we know that they will at least finish with 500 or better right now for the rest of the season. But it doesn't really feel like it in a lot of different ways.
No, it feels like a losing record, doesn't it?
It does.
It does.
To me personally.
Yeah, these are really, as they call them in the food world, these are empty calories that the Cardinals are gorging on right
it's
now.
celery.
Yeah.
It's celery.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we knew.
No, we don't even get calories. I mean, these are donuts. we're eating donuts.
Well, donuts have
lots of
plenty
calories.
Yeah, but we aren't getting anything out of it.
Yeah, a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
A little bit of seasoning on top. You wouldn't call it seasoning. What are you, sprinkles?
Yeah.
Not seasoning. Seasoning's on my steak.
Well, some people have savory donuts.
And here's the thing. They do look pretty, but there's no nutritional value whatsoever.
Yes.
Right?
And we knew going into the season, the average wild card winner had 89 wins last year. So you knew you had to get to 89. And Fangraphs is unbelievable. Every year they come out with projections with the roster currently as it is. And they had the Cardinals, and it was either 84 or 85 wins, and they're going to finish with 84 wins.
Pretty amazing.
It is. It's just unbelievable how they come up with this stuff.
Okay, so last night the Connecticut Sun eliminated the Indiana Fever from the WNBA playoffs.
Don't do it. This is my. This is something I want to talk about, Randy. You're teasing it. It's my sick of it.
Okay.
Oh.
But
go right
can
ahead.
I ask a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Is the WNBA season essentially over because Caitlin Clark isn't in it anymore?
That was my sick of it. But I'll go further into it when we get to sick of it. But yes,
Sounds
I
good.
agree.
Okay.
Or I could just knock my sick of it right out.
No, let's not.
Okay.
No, I think it's interesting. But here's the thing. To your point, and maybe what you'll touch on here, Dan, is that we're all talking about it right now because of what happened last night with Caitlin Clark and what she's done in just this 1 year for the WNBA and her college basketball career leading up into that. I think a lot of people will be tuning out. But I mean, think about how many people, how many eyes that she has brought to the game. And I know that there's people who are diehard WNBA fans that will stick around and continue to watch, and I hope that they do. But she has changed things so much in the landscape of the WNBA.
She has completely.
Did you hear what he just said?
No. What did he say, Dan?
He said dozens.
Randy.
Diehards.
Stop.
Diehards.
The diehards.
It's true.
We have Grid tonight here on 101 ESPN. Thursday night football. It's the Giants and the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? Looking forward to that. I would think that the Giants will be planning on running the football. Run the football. If
they have to.
Because the Cowboys can't stop you if you do run the football.
No, they can't. And the line, by the way, Dallas favored, though, on the road by 5.5 going into this game. They were talking about it on Unsportsmanlike, and I brought it up to you, Randy, on Monday. Brooke, you were out. Is Mike McCarthy on the hot seat? And, you know, Jerry Jones has stayed with coaches for a long time. He's shown loyalty to players by giving them long-term deals. CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott to start this season. Remember, though, how long he stayed with Jason Garrett. You know, I mean, maybe he stays with Mike McCarthy, but I'm sure Jerry feels that this is a talented team, should be better than they are, but they're going to get... I mean, they're going to see them run 60 times tonight.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Right.
I think it's a really good question. It's one that I've been thinking about, too, and also have brought up because with Mike McCarthy, this is a lame duck season for him. And you have those contracts with Dak. You have that CeeDee Lamb contract. It's basically saying if you can't get the most out of these guys, then you essentially are done. That's how I view this contract.
And people are talking about Belichick in Dallas. But ever since Bill Parcells left, and Bill Parcells required power.
And he was there 5 years? Bill
I
Parcells?
think it might have been 4.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, he was there for 4. But then Jerry Jones brings in a guy that's desperate for a job in Wade Phillips. He's kind of a puppet. And then Jason Garrett, a puppet for a decade. And now McCarthy. Those have been the 3 since Bill Parcells' final season, which was 2006. So we're talking an 18-year run here of head coaches without power. Does anybody really believe that Jerry Jones is going to cede power so that he can have Bill Belichick as his head coach?
I would say no, and especially at this point in his life. You know, I think this is his toy. He can do whatever he wants with it. And the amazing thing to me, and I think I'm right about this, but since they won their final Super Bowl in one single year, they've won 2 playoff games. So they advanced, meaning that they had 1, then 2, and then got knocked out. But that's it. That's all they've been able to do. That is amazing to me.
Last Dallas NFC Championship game, 1995. Last St. Louis NFC Championship game, 2001. And after that, St. Louis, from 2003 on, did not have a winning season. And St. Louis hasn't had a team in 9 years.
Wow. Yeah,
but
that's
we've had an NFC Championship game in our building more recently than he's had one in his.
And you can even say the organization, when you talk about the Rams, has gone further because they won a Super Bowl.
Yep.
And went to another one.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones, I think at this point, somebody just texted in as a fan, Jerry Jones needs to fire Jerry Jones. I can never see him stepping aside. But to the Bill Belichick question, don't you think that he was humbled a little bit with the fact that he wasn't rehired anywhere and now he's doing this broadcasting career, which I'm not trying to downplay that whatsoever. You make a lot of money, obviously, doing broadcasting and what he's doing. Yeah, just ask Tom Brady. But do you think that whole process maybe humbled him a little bit where he would take a role like that now?
I don't know if you go as long as he did, with as much power as he had in New England. I don't know if just not getting a job can humble you. I think he still believes that whether it's the Eagles or the Giants or the Cowboys, I think Bill Belichick believes and might know that somebody will give him the power that he craves to move into a new job.
Do you guys feel, and I do, that he has kind of recreated his image? And it's early. I mean, he's only been doing the TV stuff for probably 6 weeks. I think already he has recreated his image to where some owners would say, I'd give him a chance to come in and, you know, maybe a short time. He's 72 years old, but we're going to give him that shot. And because he's been more likable on television, and I know you're dancing with the devil here. You may not get the same guy, but he has recreated his image just a bit.
And the other question I would have is when you bring him in and put him at that podium before players after he's done what he's done on TV for the last 6 weeks, can they take him seriously? Because who is Bill Belichick? Is it the jovial, fun guy that we've seen on TV, or is it on to Cincinnati guy?
Needs to be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think
A little
if
bit, yeah.
he's growing, and he's a smart guy, clearly. He's won a lot. You can argue how he's won, but he's won. I think he can do a little bit of both, and he'd probably have to do that to appease the players, because some of these guys, they make so much money. And I don't care what sport you're talking about. They make so much money, they will tune you out. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to get rid of the player. They'll get rid of the coach. So if you don't like what he's saying, you just say, the hell with it. I'm not listening to this guy.
And he better wind up, as it turns out, by getting a quarterback who's capable of running the offense for him, because that's what he had. And once he lost that, then he had nothing. Nothing.
Yep. We all saw the record without Tom Brady.
It's pretty bad. That is it for the first segment. We're off and running here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, get your text in for Sick of It. Sick of It. 314-399-9646. 314-399. Yo-ho!
Yo-ho.
There it is.
A scratchy-voiced yo-ho. That's two of them.
Sick of It next on 101 ESPN.
It's the best time of this year, and week 4 is here for the NFL, and our friends at Underdog Fantasy have our best way to play with Thursday Night Football tonight. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by competing on Underdog. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite players' stats. Get that streak started right now. You can also get your entries in for Thursday Night Football. Speaking of our entry, last night it was going great for us. Brandon Donovan came up a little bit short, but oh well. The Mason Wynn and the Caitlin Clark plays were great for us on the entry, so if you went a little bit shorter on the entry, you were looking good, but unfortunately that third play didn't hit for us, so we're going to keep it shorter as we build our Thursday night entry for tonight. So I'm just going to start right off the bat. We're going to go Malik Neighbors higher than 71.5 receiving yards and CeeDee Lamb higher than 81.5 receiving yards in tonight's Thursday Night Football matchup. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code ROCC, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first Cash Champions entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code ROCC to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus and present in state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concern with play coordinator or gambler. Visit www.ntpgambling.org.
Time for Sick of It here on 101 ESPN. You can text in if you so desire. Brooke Grimsley, Danny Mack, Matthew Rocchio, Randy Carricker, and Dan already gave us a little tease for his Sick of It, so take it away.
The WNBA averaged 657 viewers for their historic regular season, the best mark in 24 years, fueled in large part to Caitlin Clark. A record 22 games reached 1 million viewers across their top media partners. Amazingly, Clark played in 19 of those games that drew over 1 million, 19 of the 22. I'm sick of people going after Caitlin Clark. They should be kissing her butt and saying thank you for putting up with everything, because she does put up with a lot. She gets a lot of heat for no reason, and they should be kissing her butt and saying thank you for what you've done for our league, because salaries will go up, the TV contracts will go up, and ultimately it's a great thing for basketball.
It is. Greatness brings out jealousy, Dan.
It does.
That's exactly what's happening there with Caitlin Clark.
So jealous of her.
Yes, and the fact that there's still people, especially even former players, current players in the league, that try to downplay what she's been able to do for the WNBA. I understand that maybe you were hoping that you would be able to change the game in that way too, but why would you hate somebody who is helping bring more money to the WNBA, more eyes to the WNBA? She's been able to change the game, and you're right. The way that she's handled things too, she stayed off social media. She really hasn't made comments that much about any of this, and she's really just kind of kept her head down, focused on what she's doing on the court, and it's paid off. 19
of the 22 games that were over 1 million viewers, she was involved with. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been an exciting year for her.
It is.
Yeah. All right. Sick of it for me, guys. I feel like every single week I have to talk about this until we finally have a week where Will Levis will not embarrass me. Another week, another big Will Levis mistake. Of course, if you watched the Titans and Packers this past weekend, Will Levis, he's continuing to struggle, guys. And I'm starting to get really, really worried here because, Dan, you mentioned yesterday quarterbacks who are about to be benched. Will Levis might be next, but then we have Mason Rudolph. What in the world is that going to do? I think that this past weekend, the Packers forced him into 3 turnovers, sacking him 7 times in the game. 7 times. The worst to me was that early pick 6. I don't know if you guys saw that, where he was tossing it to DeAndre Hopkins, but then it was like he didn't even see Hopkins. He just threw it right to Alexander, and then it was just 10-7 at that point, and the game just went downhill after that. He's turning into a meme at this point. He is being very memeable, and that is not a great thing in this day and age of social media. He now has a league high 8 turnovers through just 3 games this season. I know, guys, that he can be better than this. Do you guys remember last season? He was only intercepted 4 times. And remember that Miami game where he actually led the charge? What in the world happened to Will Levis? I know that there's a lot of issues. I will say the offensive line play, as we were talking about yesterday, across the league is not great, especially for the Tennessee Titans, because they have not had the ability to really keep him upright. Only Cleveland has allowed more sacks than Tennessee so far this season in the NFL. I just feel like there's a curse surrounding him. And if I need to do something, if I need to put mayo in my coffee to be able to lift this curse surrounding Will Levis this season, I will do it. I cannot do another weekend of Will Levis doing something really costly and embarrassing where he turns into a meme again.
Okay, first of all, we do need to end this curse by you putting mayo in your coffee. I think that's a good place to start. Number 2, I feel bad that you're embarrassed by him. That guy that you don't even know can embarrass you. I get it. I've been there.
What did you say this weekend, Randy, when I said I was sick?
Oh, yeah. I said, what? Something like...
You said, did Will Levis make me sick?
Yeah, right. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So it happens.
Who embarrassed you?
Oh, Scott Covington.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you.
Okay. What about Tony Banks? Were you embarrassed?
No, I felt bad for Tony. And Tony actually matured and became, a pretty good guy.
I felt bad for Isaac Bruce.
Yeah.
Because the only guy that he would throw to is Isaac Bruce, and he was getting killed on every play.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was really bad. Yeah. Going back to Levis, you got Will Levis, you got Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Deshaun Watson. Man, those are some guys that are outside of Bryce Young, who's already been benched. Those are guys that could get benched after this week.
Yeah, right. Could happen in a hurry.
Do you think it's on Brian Callahan, though, to get the most out of Will Levis? He's got to figure out something else.
I
the
think
head coach.
It is. Because he's an offensive-minded coach. That was the whole point of bringing him in, right? Because Rabels was not that guy. He was more defensive-minded coach, and it was so much to do about the offense. There's a lot, obviously, with the Titans, but he was meant to come in and help this team offensively. And they were close in some of the games earlier on this season, not obviously in this Packers game, but at the same time, I don't know what's going on. He also hired his dad, as we know, to, manage the offensive line. The offensive line play is just absolutely terrible, but then Will Levis also doesn't help himself. And I'm talking about being memeable, those moments where you just see, his hands on his head after he just threw a pick six, one of the worst ones I've ever seen in my entire life. It's embarrassing.
That's too bad. I feel bad for you.
Sick of it.
I'm with you. Guys, here's what I'm sick of. I'm sick of college realignment, because what they're trying to do with realignment is make schools that have no chance to be good feel like they're good. And with all due respect to Utah State and Fresno State and Colorado State and Boise State, they'll never be able to play with the big boys. If that would be a Power 5 conference, they would get smoked every year in the playoffs by the Big Ten, the SEC, and yes, even the Big 12 and the ACC. These are a bunch of mid-majors that have moved into a conference that used to be a major conference, but now only has its name left. And I'm tired of teams saying, or conferences saying, we've got this name, we'll just add these teams and they'll be powers. No, it doesn't work that way, and they will never be powers.
Sounds like you're talking about the Pac-12.
I am.
Okay. Yeah, the Pac-12 is one team shy of now being one of the power conferences in football, and it's interesting. Like, some of the sports are not jumping. It's all about football. That's your moneymaker. And you're right. They're going to get smoked when they play the best conferences in the country.
And the reason that the Pac-12 exists is because with the college football playoff is contractually obligated, if there is a Pac-12, to allowing them to be part of it, even though they're basically a group of 5 conference.
Yeah, it's so weird just seeing those teams and what it's turned into with the Pac-12. It's definitely not the heyday of the
not
Pac-12.
at all.
Air Force and UNLV are being talked about. It looks like they're going to be on the outside looking in.
Apparently, Air Force and UNLV have both decided to stay with the Mountain West.
Yep. They would receive larger financial packages than others. That was one way to try to get them and entice them to do it, but it probably isn't going to happen.
All right, Matthew Rocchio, what do you got for us?
Mountain West came back and gave him more money.
Yep.
Sick of the internet breaking down every call like it's the Zapruder film every time the Chiefs win a game. Sounds like we got a Chiefs fan on the text line.
We do.
What do you think of the call on Sunday night? Pass interference?
The lack of one?
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, Dan.
Yeah, and you kind of want to break that down like the Zapruder film.
I thought it was a little interesting that he got there a little early, and it was pretty obvious 1 week after it being pretty obvious that the other guy got there a little early.
So you want to see it?
Yeah, I want to see it.
Me too.
Brooke, I know one thing that you aren't going to be sick of.
What's that?
Chick-fil-A breakfast.
What?
What? Why? What's going on right now?
Right now. It's happening.
It's on its way?
It's on its way.
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
Brooke wanted this desperately.
Is that right?
I mean, I'm always game for Chick-fil-A. I didn't know it was happening today, so this is a great surprise.
We're going to make you eat something spicy, Danny.
I'm good.
Right here on the air.
It's
going to happen right here on the air.
It's
in
not.
front of St. Louis.
Well, if I eat something spicy, that means I'm done for the show. So probably a lot of people are wanting me to eat spicy.
Coming up here on 101 ESPN, the Mets and Braves got rained out last night, and they got rained out today. And it's not anybody's fault but Rob Manfred's. That's next on 101 ESPN.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals last night with another win over the Colorado Rockies, 5-2. Eric Fedde with his best start in a Cardinal uniform, 7 innings pitched, 6 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 10 strikeouts. Also the big night for Ryan Helsley as he logged save number 48 with an extremely efficient 1-pitch save, getting 2 outs as he got a double play from the Rockies to end the game. The Blues were also in action in the preseason as they fall 3-0 to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Cardinals will be back in action today with a 2:10 first pitch game as they close out their series against the Rockies. Kyle Gibson faces off against Kyle Freeland for Colorado. Freeland on the season 5-8 with a 4.95 ERA. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
A couple of things to hit on baseball-wise. Number one, the Mets and the Braves were rained out because of a hurricane last night in Atlanta and today in Atlanta. Everybody saw the forecast. Everybody knew that the hurricane was coming. Yet Major League Baseball and the Braves determined, we're going to take our chances and hope that we can play the games. The Braves did so primarily because they wanted to protect out a couple of sold-out gates. I get that baseball's all about money, and I get that they have to make money. But when you're at this point in the season and a storm is coming your way and you have a logical place to play games unaffected by a potential hurricane, like Milwaukee this week, baseball should have moved the games to Milwaukee. This is all Rob Manfred's fault, and he allowed the Braves, and granted, he does work for the Braves, but he allowed the Braves to handle the situation in a way that they saw fit, which wasn't good for baseball. And what's going to happen now is that if these two teams are still in the wild card race come Monday, they're going to have to play a doubleheader on Monday and then wild card games on Tuesday. They're going to have to play 18 innings on Monday, fly to wherever they're going, and then play games on Tuesday with what you would anticipate will be a decimated pitching staff.
Here's the scenario that could happen. So you mentioned the wild card game on Tuesday. That could be in San Diego.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have the Mets playing Sunday in Milwaukee, doubleheader Monday in Atlanta, as you mentioned, wild card game Tuesday in San Diego. So 4 games potentially in 56 hours in 3 time zones.
Wow.
That just doesn't make sense. And as you mentioned, Randy, baseball has a chance to rectify this and put it on a neutral site. I remember when Katrina hit and the Cubs had to play on a neutral site in Milwaukee, and Carlos Zambrano threw a no-hitter.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
So they figured it out before, and this is a scenario in which it's not good. It's a bad look for baseball. It's not fair.
It is. It is a really bad look for baseball, and a huge miss by Major League Baseball in this entire situation. As you mentioned, they have done it plenty times before. Remember Hurricane Irma? The Rays played the Yankees at home as a home team at Citi Field to be able to dodge that. You knew that the hurricane was coming. Why wouldn't you have some way or some situation to be able to better prep for this? Now, do you think, too, that Major League Baseball maybe shouldn't put it in the hands when it comes to decisions with rescheduling or anything like that with games on the teams, that maybe Major League Baseball should handle that?
There is an all-encompassing clause that the commissioner has to do pretty much anything he wants in the best interests of the game. And for me, and this was something that Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the first commissioner of the sport, demanded after the Black Sox scandal when he took the job. And it has remained within the purview of the commissioner to make this determination. In the best interests of baseball. It definitely would have been in the best interests of baseball to move this series to Milwaukee.
And the Braves made that decision, correct?
Yes.
The Braves said, we don't want to move because we are worried about losing the gate. They would rather have...
And they were sold out.
Yeah, right.
They were sold out.
But they would rather have the money, evidently, and play Monday and take the chance of having a decimated... Because they don't make a lot of money from the playoffs. They would rather make the regular season money on Monday and hurt their chances of winning than give themselves a better chance to win by giving up those gates and playing in a place like Milwaukee or another dome stadium.
And I wonder what the Players Association is saying about this right now, too. They have a say. It's the most powerful union in sports. And I wonder if they've stepped in and said, now, we need to really think about what we're doing here. Are we sure we want to do it this way?
You are treating your players well by putting them in the situation that we're talking about early next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, when it's all said and done, what will be the lasting impression of Rob Manfred? He's made the sport a ton of money.
Yep.
He's been able to grow the sport. You know, you may have expansion before he leaves. I think the most important thing he has to do is figure out the TV situation. But when he called the trophy of a hunk of metal and he's doing things like this, I wonder what the general public will think of his legacy when it's all said and done.
I think that's part of his legacy, and another part of his legacy is going to be almost forcing the move of the A's, who are playing their final game in Oakland.
Yes.
Guys, when I was a kid and baseball was king, they played World Series games during the day, during weekdays. When I was a kid in the early 70s, the A's played in 4 straight World Series. They won 3 of them. And they would wheel televisions into my, 2nd or 3rd grade classroom, 4th grade classroom, so that we could watch the World Series. And it was the A's against the Dodgers, A's against the Reds, whatever. And so I became attached to the A's very quickly as a youngster because it was right after the Cardinals' great run of the late 60s. And the A's were just such an attractive team with Sal Bando and Bert Campaneris and Dick Green and Gene Tennis and Ray Fosse and Joe Rudy and Bill North and Reggie Jackson, obviously, and Vida Blue and Catfish Hunter and Raleigh Fingers. They were just cool. They were cool. And then they had Billy Ball in the early 80s, which was incredible because that was kind of like Whitey Ball here. Billy Martin became their manager, and they had Ricky Henderson, and they stole a ton of bases. And then Tony gets there in the late 80s, and they're awesome for a great stretch of time. That's been such a great, iconic piece of baseball history. And it's almost as if Rob Manfred said, nah, we don't need Oakland. We'd rather have a team in Vegas.
And in 1991, the Oakland A's had the largest payroll in baseball. And then 10 years later, they're having to get into postseason play by doing Moneyball because everything had been ripped out of that franchise. Randy, I remember 1982 watching day games of the Cardinals in the World Series against Milwaukee. Willie's catch. And the great game that he put together was done in the day.
Dave LaPointe's error?
Dave LaPointe's error. I remember, thinking about 1985. Ozzy's Go Crazy home run was a day game.
Right. And Jack Clark's home run.
And Jack Clark's home run out in L.A. So, yeah, things have changed. I understand why you put it in prime time. I do. But, man, I miss those days. And I just wonder what his lasting legacy will be. And I think on any owner, any commissioner, one of the worst things you can have is teams leaving their home markets. It's not a good look.
The last great commissioner in sports, and this is with all due respect to Adam Silver and David Stern, who have both done a great job. Last great commissioner in sports was Paul Tagliabue. And we talked last week because it was 2 weeks ago, 9/11. Every other sport waited to see what the NFL and Paul Tagliabue did.
That's right.
And then they did their thing on the heels of everybody was waiting to see, okay, what's Tagliabue going to do? Because he's the smartest of all of us. And I don't think Rob Manfred holds a candle to what the NFL, even the scoundrel that runs the league now, I don't think Manfred holds a candle to those guys.
And that's being prepared in every single situation. As you guys mentioned, too, with the A's, I don't know if you read John Fisher's letter, but he said in it, staying in Oakland was our goal. It was our mission, and we failed to achieve it. And for that, I am genuinely sorry. To your point, Dan, where you're talking about payroll and that being stripped down to what it was, they weren't trying to stay in Oakland. They were trying to make sure that they could really alienate the fans as much as possible so that they could make this move to Las Vegas, which, by the way, do they even have a place in Las Vegas locked down yet? There's been so much going on with that behind the scenes. You're going to somewhere that they say they want you, but then they also can't help you lock down a specific location for your brand new stadium for your fans that are supposedly maybe will be there. Who knows? I just think it's ridiculous. And you're right. I think that's something that's going to stick with his legacy, Rob Manfred. And then even we're talking about just going back to the beginning of this with this situation with the Mets and Braves. you have to be active. When you're talking about great commissioners, you have to think of every single possible situation and making sure that it's best for the fans and also for the players. And he did not do that in this situation.
You need a guy in your ear. We asked Eli Drinkwitz yesterday about having a guy down in distance and a clock guy in his ear. Rob Manfred needs a guy in his ear. Says, okay, this is the logical move to make.
He works for the owners.
He does, ultimately, yeah.
Ultimately, that means more money with the relocation of the A's going to Vegas. But the problem is, to Brooks' point, there's not a sustainable plan in place. And I don't know how you uproot a team and a franchise from the Bay Area if you don't have a certainty knowing where you're going to go and having a stadium ready.
I don't think anybody's convinced, or maybe they are, that Vegas even wants the A's. I think more people are convinced that Vegas doesn't want the A's than are convinced that they do.
Do you think that Major League Baseball is going to have to step in and fund some of this stadium? Or they're going to put pressure on Fisher and say, we tried to make it work. We pushed the envelope. It got pushed too far, and you're going to have to pony up because we can't have egg on our face like this.
I think baseball had the opportunity to do that and blew it. Joe Lacob, the owner of the Warriors, wanted to buy the A's.
Exactly.
And if you're a commissioner that really wants to protect markets, then you go to Fisher and you say, okay, well, this guy's got a lot of money. He's a great owner, and he wants to keep the team in the Bay Area. You can either sell to him or fix the problem yourself, but the team's staying in the Bay Area.
I feel so badly for the fans of the Bay Area.
They're living the same thing we did.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the Raiders, obviously, now the A's. The Warriors go, now it's still Bay Area team, so that I think that's okay with what they did, but they left the Oakland area. I mean, it's a brutal time to be a fan of those franchises and a sports fan in that town. Yep. Terrible.
Dan, Brooke, Matthew, and Randy. Coming up, we've got Take It or Leave It. Get your text into the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646, 314-399. Yo-ho! TIOLI next on 101 ESPN.
Want to say something? We'll put it out there. If you like it, you can take it. If you don't, send it right back.
Get your text into 314-399-9646 and give us your take it or leave it.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
Time for TIOLI here on 101 ESPN. Do you guys believe in recency bias and being a prisoner of the moment?
Yes.
So earlier this morning, Dan and I were talking about the greatest inventions of all time, and Dan brought up the NFL Red Zone channel, which is a legit candidate to be the greatest invention of all time. But guys, take it or leave it. The greatest invention of all time is Chick-fil-A.
Take it. Is it technically under the invention category?
So, yeah.
You're in the moment.
Yeah, totally.
You're in the moment, chowing down. So, yeah, I'd say take that for sure.
Oh, yes. That was actually going to be my take it or leave it, too, is that the chicken minis, take it or leave it, the best way to start your day.
Oh, take it, yeah.
Take
Thanks
it
to
100%.
our buddy Dave Bruce over at the DePere Chick-fil-A and his buddy Mike Niedringhaus. They're always so friendly to every single guest. And I'm a regular there, so I know, I see, and I observe. And they do just sensational work. So thanks to them, and thanks to Chick-fil-A. If you're having lunch today and you're out and about, head to the DePere location.
So good. If you haven't had chicken minis, you haven't lived.
No, you haven't.
You haven't lived.
Yeah, there's a difference between being alive and living.
Exactly.
And Chick-fil-A minis, they cause you to be able to live.
You should tell the story about what you did when your son was sick and what they did for you.
So Patrick, my son, had lymphoma a couple of summers ago and went through chemo from May through October. And when he was finishing chemo, his last day when he was going to ring the bell, we decided to get Chick-fil-A sandwiches because the nurses always talked about how much they liked Chick-fil-A. So we got nurses, all the nurses and all the doctors and all the staff over at Mercy. We got them. We ordered Chick-fil-A for all of them from the DePere location because that's closest to Mercy Hospital. And I go in and I'm prepared to pay, and they said, no, you can't pay. This is such a big deal. Your son's going to ring the bell today, and he's finishing chemo. You aren't allowed. And I said, come on, I got to pay. And they just would not let me pay. They're incredible.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
And it used to be, by the way, that when a new store opened, people would actually stand in line because if you were one of the first 100 or so customers, you got free Chick-fil-A. I think it was for a year. And now, rather than that, they are providing the food to area hospitals. So they're pretty cool. They're
awesome.
The best.
That's a great story.
Well done.
Thank you. And well done by them. Thanks to them.
Take it or leave it. Ryan Helsley will not be a member of the Cardinals this time next season.
This time next season. Dan, I'm going to take that.
So basically,
No contract extension.
Trade deadline, no contract extension, trade deadline, or maybe this offseason he gets moved. He's got 48 saves. If you missed it late last night, he has tied Trevor Rosenthal for the single season mark in Cardinals history in saves with 48. I don't know. It's an interesting proposition. Does he stay or does he go?
I think the Cardinals might be headed towards an era where they aren't going to pay star money to athletes anymore. I could see that happening sooner rather than later.
Of sorts.
Yeah.
Although they love having at least one star on the team, a reason to come to the ballpark. And maybe Mason Wynn is that guy, and he's under cost control for a number of years. I could see him being that guy. He's a fun player to watch, but the days of going out and getting an Arenado and paying big money or Paul Goldschmidt, not to say that to the wayside, but I'm not sure that their appetite is real strong to go do that.
Mr. DeWitt, Bill DeWitt Jr., is very proud of the fact that since 1909, every single game the Cardinals have played, they've had a Hall of Famer in uniform. Since 1909. And I can envision a day in the very near future where there is not a surefire Hall of Famer in uniform for the Cardinals.
One of the things you have to remember was how they shifted their minor league approach under Jeff Luhnow. And they went to an analytically based look at players. Matt Adams, who just recently retired, is a great example. A catcher at Slippery Rock, but they saw lift and they saw power and they saw bat speed and said, let's sign him. The aforementioned Trevor Rosenthal was playing shortstop, and they saw there was a scout to watch a different player, and they saw him throw across the diamond. They said, wait a minute, maybe we can make this guy into a really good pitcher. So my point is that maybe at the major league level, you're going to see more of this. Not to say that they don't have an analytically based club. They do. But maybe more of that as they move forward, which means cost control on certain players that they're looking at.
By the way, I think we'd all agree that they do a good job of getting talent into the organization. It's identifying the talent that they have in the organization that is the problem.
Or get them to the next level to have success.
Yeah, with coaching, yep.
Take it or leave it. Opening day will not be a sellout this year.
Leave it.
Leave that for
I will
sure.
leave it.
It'll be a sellout.
Always is.
Yeah.
One way or another, it'll be a sellout.
Second game might not be.
Second game could be 20,000.
Yep.
I think a lot of it depends on what you do this offseason and igniting the fan base again and getting them interested. And we saw enough at the tail end of this year. People were not happy.
And I do think if I had to guess, I would say that next week that Mo is not in charge of the personnel. Next week at this time, if I had to guess, I would say Mo is not in charge of the personnel anymore. And if that's the case, I think that will make a lot of people. I don't know if it'll cause people to spend money, but I think they won't boycott the franchise based upon one guy.
It depends on who else is at the helm and what their message is.
Yeah.
I think if they came out and said we're going with youth, I think people would be okay with it. We've talked about that before. So whether it's Mo or Chaim Bloom or Randy Flores, but if they say this is our approach and they're upfront with that, I think fans would buy in. Just be upfront.
Take it or leave it. Bears should have kept Justin Fields and drafted Joe Alt instead.
It wouldn't have been bad.
It works.
Yeah, I'll take that. That's fun. I will take that. Fields was emerging as a member of the Bears, and they need a great offensive lineman. They haven't really had a great offensive line in a long time. And Joe Alt would have fit, being a Notre Dame guy and being the big, rugged, bear weather tackle that they needed. Yeah, he would have been a good fit.
You probably could have added like a third rounder by trading down to 3. You're still in the spot to get a Dunze and then Alt, so you still have Justin Fields with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Roma Dunze as and Cole Kmet. You have the skill position group around him. Just now you have a left tackle who's good.
Yeah, I want to see what he does with Keenan Allen healthy.
Yeah.
More weapons, really good weapon that can help him out. Justin Fields, you guys know what I think of him. I love him. He's protecting the ball, generating enough offense to win. They're only averaging 17 points a game, but he's protecting the ball. He's completed 73% of his throws and thrown for over 500 yards. I mean, he's done a pretty good job in Pittsburgh.
I think leave it. I think this is honestly the best situation for Justin Fields. I'm leaving it just because of that.
Oh, because of him rather than the
I think
Bears.
that this works out. And also, were the Bears going to pay him?
Well, if they would have kept him, they would have had to.
Yeah.
I think they could have. Yeah.
One more mediocre season.
I think
it
it's
seemed
going to be
like
a
they
fun
were
debate,
giving
though.
up on him, though. It just felt like they were done.
I think one of the things the Bears, and I think Kevin Warren will change this, their current president, who, by the way, oversaw that move. I don't think they really understand playoff weather in Chicago. Once you get to the playoffs, Caleb Williams has never played in cold weather before. Not that Fields, he's originally from Georgia. He played a couple of seasons at Ohio State. But you need somebody, and this is one of the reasons that the Bills took Josh Allen. You need somebody that's big and has huge hands that can play in that weather. And I don't know if Williams or Fields could have done that.
Do you change the scheme, though?
You have to be able to run the ball.
That's where I'm going.
Yep. And they talk about a team that's a pretty good team that doesn't have a running back.
Yes.
I'm amazed at the Cardinals right now, the Arizona Cardinals. They don't have a running back. I'm amazed for a devalued position at the dearth of quality running backs in the NFL.
Take it or leave it. Oakland will not be the only move. Take it or leave it. One of the Florida baseball teams is the one that ends up in Nashville.
I'm going to leave it because neither of those teams, Tampa just broke ground on a new stadium, and the Marlins have a lease. I think it's a 40-year lease, and they moved in less than a decade ago into their new stadium, right?
Yeah, they're not leaving. Either one of those. It was a 5-3 vote. The St. Petersburg City Council, and it's going to be a $1.3 billion stadium. It's a redevelopment of the Tropicana Field site. They call it the Historic Gas Plant District. So Tampa Bay is going to wind up staying there.
Leave it, but take it or leave it, there will be a team that relocates to Nashville.
I'm going to leave it. I'm going to say that baseball expands to
That's
Nashville.
where I'm going to. Expansion more so
That's
than
what
relocation.
I keep hearing over and over again.
Yeah, and Dave Dombrowski interested. I know Tony La Russa was in on that.
Dave Stewart.
Yep. So they're going to have a team. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Now, a bit of a problem, I guess, in Nashville specifically is because you have the Titans Stadium that is being built, and it's very expensive, over $2 billion. So you have a lot of people who are hearing about Major League Baseball looking at expanding in Nashville. I'm sure they would welcome it either way, but just because of how expensive the taxes are for the new stadium, as people know here in St. Louis, when you are getting a brand new stadium in the NFL, you're really footing the bill, especially taxpayers. And a lot of people are pushing back at how expensive it's getting for this brand new stadium to be built.
Oh, nobody will notice an extra $5 on a Nashville hotel room.
Right.
It racks up.
Yeah,
It does.
I don't know if this is still the case, but as of a couple of years ago, Nashville had the second highest average hotel price per night to New York.
It's insane.
In the entire country.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The city is just exploding. People are moving there.
Yeah.
You got to have baseball there. I think that would be a logical place to go.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Randy.
And thank you, Dan. And thank you very much for your text. We do appreciate it. Coming up, we had Eli Drinkwitz on the show yesterday, and things have changed for Mizzou in a really good way. And the biggest way, we're going to tell you next on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's Danny Mack for Stewart's American Mortgage. If you're someone who is looking to purchase a home or refinance, or if you're looking to consolidate some of that ugly credit card debt, and maybe you don't know exactly what direction to go to in any of these things, let's make it easy for you. Call Stewie from Stewart's American Mortgage, and he will help you every step of the way. If it's a new home you're looking to purchase, he'll get you to the closing table fast, and you're asking, well, just how fast can he do it? Try 10 days, and he'll get you the best interest rate possible. He also has the bagel loan that can help you out too. What's the bagel loan, you may be asking? Well, if you borrow $200,000 or more, there's no underwriting fees, no appraisal fees, no title fees, no lender fees, and no closing costs. Stewart is your guy. He makes it easy for you. Any questions on rates, the industry, the trends? Give Stewart a call. Call him directly on his personal cell phone. He will pick up, or text him 314-324-4440, 314-324-4440, or Google the Bagel Loan.
I first got here, it was a courtesy to be able to get to visit with some of these elite players. Like, we had to beg the high school coach, hey, we're the home state, let us come talk to the players. And now it's like a bigger deal. Like, oh, Mizzou's coming in a helicopter. Oh, Mizzou's coming to watch this young man perform. And there's just a different level of I think, respect, and that's been a really cool thing to develop. You know, when you recruit, you go out there and you sell what we're going to do. And when you look at what we sold Luther Burden on what we're going to do and what has transpired, what we said and what we did align. And so I think whenever you have integrity in what you're trying to do in the recruiting trail, it lends to a lot more success.
8:04 in St. Louis. Time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. That is Eli Drinkwitz yesterday here on 101 ESPN. And the lifeblood, even with the transfer portal, the lifeblood of any high-quality college football program, not a team, a program, is to do recruiting of high school athletes. And ever since I've been doing this job, when I started, when I was in my 20s at KMOX 40 years ago, people, Mizzou fans, have said, we got to seal the border. Whenever they would hire a new coach, you got to seal the border. And that's what Mizzou has done. This year, for the 2025 class, Mizzou has the number 20 ranked recruiting class in America, according to ESPN. And as Eli said, on the heels of Barry Odom, the one time when Barry Odom was coach here, there were a half a dozen really good players. And Mizzou didn't get any of them. And Odom said, oh, they're overrated. And Mizzou had trouble getting into doors, into high schools. And now, like Eli said, Mizzou is able to get through those doors, and they're able to recruit those players because, like he said, and we've heard Coach Reid say it before, Carl Reid, Mizzou is cool again. Mizzou is a cool place to go.
And Mizzou is cool again. And he's right. And if you look at 2025, too, when you're talking about recruiting class rankings, they're 16th right now in the country, and they still have time to go there, of course. Eli Drinkwitz and what he's been able to do, I have to commend him for sticking to his word. I don't know if you guys were there for that, too, over in Como when he was introduced as the new head football coach. Yep. He went up there and he said, I'm going to recruit within the state. I'm going to make sure that the best stay here in Missouri. And he did exactly that. He recruited heavily, of course, as we know, in St. Louis. Look at how many St. Louisans are on his roster who are starting for his team. You have Brady Cook, of course. You have Luther Burden. The list goes on and on and on of St. Louisans that he has been able to keep in the state of Missouri. I think Luther Burden is the biggest part of this piece of the puzzle, too. Luther Burden staying, committing to Mizzou, the way that he also has been able to help recruit and now is becoming a nationally known name as Mizzou is 4-0. I think that's a testament to Eli Drinkwitz and how much he has grown this program. And he also stuck to his word. You know how hard it is in this day and age, especially in college football, to have a head football coach actually stick to their word? It's hard.
It's impossible.
Exactly.
Right?
And he did just that. He was able to keep the best in the state and also recruit outside the state. And now he's going in, having those conversations with 5 stars, 4 stars, being able to bring them over to Mizzou. And he's able to develop. I think that's another big part of this, too, is that you can bring in 4 or 5-star recruits, even 3-star, and that's fine. But what are you doing to help them reach that next level? And we've seen that he's able to elevate those 3-star recruits even lower.
And he gets Darius Robinson into the NFL as a first-round draft choice, 2 cornerbacks into the NFL. There's going to be, at some point soon, a quarterback that gets an opportunity in the NFL. When you look at what, in the time he's been at Mizzou, the players that he's been able to get to at least draft status in the NFL, it's been pretty good.
I would say Burden was ultimately the key with all of this, and something that we have not talked about is that Missouri plays in the SEC. And if you are a kid from St. Louis and Eli walks into your living room, you can say, yeah, we've sent these guys to the NFL. We believe that you're one of those players that we can send to the National Football League. We'll develop you. Also, you're going to go against the best of the best, which is looking at the Southeastern Conference. I think Brady Cook was big, too. You know, not a lot of people talk about how important that was to bring him to Missouri. And the other part that's so important is that Missouri has a good grasp on NIL. And it comes down to paying kids and getting money into their pockets and taking care of families. So I look at the SEC, I look at Luther Burden and NIL. No particular order, but they've done a really good job. And the state has set it up to where Missouri can do that, and other places can't. So NIL is a big part of this, too.
And Missouri has not had to react to being involved in the NIL realm. Desiree Reed-Francois, who is very good and cutting edge in terms of NIL. Laird Veach understands it. Their board of trustees understand how important NIL is. And Missouri is kind of, the University of Missouri football, kind of leading the way in the NIL pursuit, rather than having to follow along and say, oh, well, they did something cool, let's catch up to that.
Exactly. And the thing is, too, is that Eli Drinkwitz, his name is going to continue to come up in head football coach searches because he's doing exactly what colleges want right now. Great at NIL, great at the transfer portal, and he's able to bring those players in. Also from the 314 right here, it feels like the Pinkel days again. Gary Pinkel was great about recruiting within the state. And I know that it's hard to do comparisons with coaches, especially Gary Pinkel and what he means to the University of Missouri. But do you think that Eli Drinkwitz can get to that point of what Gary Pinkel has been able to do?
And Gary brought in DGB, and he brought in Jeremy Macklin. Mm-hmm. He brought in some 4- and 5-star guys.
Sheldon Richardson
was another one. But I think Pinkel, in terms of, and coaches say they don't believe in stars. I think they do, like the 5-star rankings. But, and NIL has a lot to do with this. Drinkwitz has brought in a higher percentage of 4- and 5-star guys than Gary ever did. Like, Sean Weatherspoon was a 3-star guy. William Moore was a 2-star wide receiver that became a second-round safety in the NFL. Charles Harris, first-round draft choice, was a 3-star guy. There were tons of 2- and 3-star players that Pinkel turned into first- and second-round picks in the NFL draft.
Weatherspoon was a 2-star, too.
Who was?
Weatherspoon was also a 2-star.
Yeah, 2-star.
Yeah, I was like, when you said that, I was like, pretty sure there's multiple 2-stars. It's incredible what he's done. But I'll be honest, I kind of like the coaching up 4 stars instead of having to coach up 2 stars. As a Mizzou fan, it feels a lot more comfortable going in every season. Also, I think the bigger thing here is just the fact of where he's come from. It's like Pinkel was always this straight-laced guy, and so like the reverberations didn't feel like very high or low. With Drinkwitz, you had like the Darth Vader moment with Dan Mullen, and he's showing up with the tractor trailers at high schools and stuff like that. And
you saying that Gary didn't drive a Maybach?
A lot of it seemed kind of kitschy at first. And kind of just like we're running trick plays because we are having to ask permission to talk to the best players and they're not wanting to talk to us. And now the legitimacy behind it is just, that's the biggest surprise to me, is that it all felt like you were building a potential house of cards that was going to come tumbling, and everyone was just going to laugh at. Everyone was just going to be like, "Look at him, with the lightsaber and everything like that." But now it's like, no, look at this guy who's trying to come for the haymakers across college football, and I was getting to talk to all the other 5 stars, whether they're in state or out of state. That's a huge jump that I don't think anyone could have predicted, not just when he got hired, but a year ago today.
I don't think enough people talk about what the Missouri lawmakers did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they passed legislation amending the state's NIL. So the law allows athletes to begin profiting from endorsement deals while still in high school, as long as they sign a letter of intent to attend a public university in Missouri. That to me is huge.
It is huge. It really is. And Eli Drinkwitz has been able to navigate all of that. And it's great that the state also bought into what he was trying to build with this program and buying into what he was doing over there at Mizzou. When you're talking about 3 stars and stuff too, remember Cody Schrader was a walk-on, and Eli Drinkwitz was able to identify what he was able to bring. And he was one of the best stories in college football last season and was a huge key to their success, where they're able to go on to win the Cotton Bowl last season. So I think that he has been able to elevate his players, get the most out of them. And they're 4-0 right now. They are winning, and I know that there's a lot of people, because I put it out on social media. Remember, Dan, your question about Brady Cook yesterday, and he had the response where he defended him and said if people need to get their heads checked, their minds checked, if they think that they're questioning the quarterback position right now, talking about Brady Cook. And I got a lot of reaction from people. And my question is, do you want the head football coach to throw their quarterback under the bus when they are 4-0 to start the season? Of course. And he also, in that same answer, mentioned that he knows that Brady Cook still has room to grow, and so does he as a head coach. I thought that was a great way that he handled that. When you're talking about some of the goofy stuff that we've seen, Matthew, I think that showed a lot of growth and maturity that we've seen every single year from Drink.
He gets it. Eli gets it. We had a quarterback here that went to a Super Bowl and then got off to a bad start the next year, and people couldn't wait to get rid of the quarterback. The St. Louis Rams did, and he wound up going to another Super Bowl with another franchise and going to the Hall of Fame. I think there's an unreasonable expectation. And this is not the fault of the fan. This is the fault primarily of ESPN in dumbing down the football fan and making it be just quarterback versus quarterback and not understanding that defense plays a role, special teams play a role. You have to have a good offensive line. Not everything goes perfect during the course of a football game. I think there's a lack of understanding on the part of many people as to how a football game is won, and it's not just the quarterback.
When are you going to give Brady Cook the credit for what he does on the ground? He is second in the SEC among QBs in rushing. You know, no one talks about that. He can run. He can make some plays. The problem has been opening it up, getting it to Burden downfield. And I think that's a legitimate criticism at this point.
I'll talk about it. Stop calling running plays for him. Give it to the running backs. They're getting more yardage than him.
Well, they had 24 carries for Nate Noel. He had 199 yards.
I'm saying, keep calling
Nate's doing well.
Keep making the called running plays to the running backs, please.
I will defer to the people that are actually coaching the team.
That too.
Yeah,
I will usually, but every once in a while I'll take a little pot shot. Acknowledging that I know a lot less than them, but I will say I will make that opinion known. Just like 3 less called quarterback runs a game.
Okay,
I'll be happy.
There we go. Coming up here on 101 ESPN, 25 years ago today, the St. Louis Rams hosted the Atlanta Falcons and won by a score of 35-7. And the star of the game wasn't an offensive guy. He was on defense, and he's next on 101 ESPN.
Go. Greatness hit a new speed in St. Louis.
Fires up the middle. The pass is caught to Isaac. And he's gone.
And the gateway to the West became
The gateway to the best football
football team in the world.
From the lowest lows.
Green went down hard and is not getting up.
To the highest highs.
Mike Jones made the tackle, and the Rams have won the Super Bowl.
And every unbelievable moment in between.
Touchdown, Ricky Prohl in the corner.
Every piece of the 99 season felt like a story. And today, we continue the legend of the greatest show on turf.
Welcome back to the opening drive on 101 ESPN in St. Louis. And it's been 25 years since the St. Louis Rams rolled to the Super Bowl 34 victory. And today we get a chance to talk to 1999 Pro Bowl cornerback Todd Lyght. Todd, it's great to have you with us back in St. Louis. How you doing?
I'm wonderful, Randy. How are you doing, my good man?
I'm doing well. It's good to hear your voice. Okay, I want to get something straight here right off the bat because
absolutely
the Cardinals are wearing these City Connect jerseys this year that say the Lou on the front, and Nelly gets a lot of credit, as he should, because he had a popular song, Country Grammar.
And he should. Yeah. I mean, you know.
Yeah, no doubt. But in 1995, after the first St. Louis Rams game in Green Bay, I seem to recall you saying, we can't wait to get back to the Lou. This was in 1995.
Right. Yes, I was the first one to coin that phrase in 1995 in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and I think Nelly got a chance to read that article. And he put it in one of his songs, and it became famous after that.
So no royalties for Todd Lyght, though, right?
No royalties.
Hey, we're talking on the day, the 25-year anniversary of the second game of the year against Atlanta. First of all, that was a weird year because you guys had the bye in the second week of the season. Clearly, the league didn't have high expectations for the St. Louis Rams that year.
No, they really did not. And, the season, with the way they set the bye, not very favorable in the beginning of the season. But, like Coach Vermeil always talked about, what is going to be our response to anything that's going to be difficult through the course of the season? How are we going to respond to adversity? And so, we try to look at the scheduling as glass half full where, okay, we're going to get our rest early on in the season. Let's make sure that we take advantage of that. And we did in terms of our preparation for the remainder of the season.
And I remember heard, I think, on the Monday night game before you played the Falcons. They had been in the Super Bowl the year before. That was a pretty good early test for you guys, wasn't it?
It really was. I mean, Atlanta, they had a really talented team. Obviously, had a lot of success the year before. Very explosive on the offensive side, very sound defensively, and we knew that was going to be a big challenge for us. Obviously, in order for us to get to where we wanted to get to, we knew we had to take the Falcons out. And we had to take them out early. And, we had a really good game. As I recall, I believe the score was 35-7, and we played really well on defense. We played a very, very sound defensive game that game.
And you were terrific. You had a sack. You had an interception. You had 8 tackles. You were all over the place.
Yeah, that was one of my best games statistically. And, I only had a couple of sacks during my career. I always used to beg the coaches to let me blitz, but Bud Carson was kind enough to kind of dial up a couple of blitzes for me every now and then. So, I got to take full advantage of that. Yeah, like you said, I had 8 tackles. I had 2 pass breakups, 1 sack, and 1 interception, which was, an outstanding game for a defensive back at that time.
Hey, Todd, we were talking to Trent Green a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how when he walked through the door, he knew that you guys were a dominant defense. He said, if we could just get anything going offensively, we could really, really be good. At what point, or do you recall a point where you thought, man, this offense has turned things around and we can be really good?
Yeah, absolutely. I knew in the preseason, they were putting up big numbers. Trent was obviously, really throwing the ball really well. He was, understanding Coach Smart's offense and, the way that we wanted to attack defenses. I think Coach Smart's did a great job of, using shifts and motions to kind of make sure that the defense was in what we wanted them to be in. Post-snap, obviously getting into their second and third defensive check, which gave us a huge advantage. And, he was able to execute. And obviously, he got hurt, Kerr stepped in, and the rest is history. But funny story about Trent Green, I'll never forget. It was like maybe our second or third preseason game. We're playing the Chicago Bears. And I'm sitting on the bench. This is a great story. And I was sitting on the bench with Keith Lyle. And, they're going out for the coin toss or whatever. So Trent comes up to us, and Trent's just a brand new on the team. Like we've known him for like a month or so, but we really don't know him. And he walks up to us and he was like, "I heard so much great things about this defensive secondary. Man, let me see something." And then like turned and walked away like he challenged Keith and I. And I remember looking at Keith, and then we just both kind of smiled, right? The first series on defense, Keith got a pick. And then the second series on defense, I got a pick. And then I remember we both walked over to Trent. We were like, "How you like that?"
That's beautiful. Oh man, and you know what? It's amazing, and it was magical. And Kurt became Kurt. He's in the Hall of Fame. But Trent had it going. He was 28 of 32 for 406 yards before he got hurt in that game against the Chargers. Do you think, knowing what you know now, that Trent could have done pretty much the same thing Kurt did?
Yes, I do. I really believe that. I think that he had taken nothing away from Kurt because, he was phenomenal all season long. And I think that, when he stepped into that role as a starter, he was fully prepared. A lot of people, know his story as, coming out as a starter, but they don't really know the background story. Like Kurt was with us for a while as our practice team quarterback. So he got to go up against, the likes of DeMarco Farr, Kevin Carter, Ray Agnew, Mike Jones, London Fletcher, myself, Keith Lyle, Dre Bly, and a lot of other great defenders on a daily basis. And so, through those repetitions going against a high-level defense, he only got better each and every day. And I remember thinking that, this guy has a chance to be really, really special. The thing I loved about Kurt the most was that he could throw the ball from any arm slot with great accuracy, which is rare for a quarterback. Usually quarterbacks are kind of, one or two arm slots where they're really good with their accuracy. He had the ability to throw really, really accurately from every arm slot. And so that's when I knew that he was kind of special and he was kind of different.
One of the other cool things about him and that offense that was just so talented is they allowed you guys to play downhill. I think, number one, Todd, that your defense, a great defense, was kind of overlooked because the offense was so good. But what sort of a difference did it make when you're up by 2 touchdowns in the first quarter every week?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference because, teams become one-dimensional and they know that they have to throw the ball, right? And they have to abandon the run game if they're going to keep up with our offense. And then, if they're throwing the ball, obviously, we can play our pass defenses. We can get into our combination coverages. We can make it really difficult for the quarterbacks. And we can create more turnovers, create shorter fields for our offense to generate more offense. And, it was phenomenal. But I think the real key for us in terms of, reaching our true potential as the greatest show on turf were our practices. Thinking back as a defender and going in practice, and we're going against the likes of, like you say, Trent Green, Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. We had a wonderful array of talent, Oz Akeem, Ricky Prohl, and, we could hurt you a lot of ways offensively, which made us really get creative on defense. And so defending that offense in practice really, really made it easy for us on Sundays.
Hey, Todd, you mentioned a couple of names a moment ago. You mentioned DeMarco and Keith Lyle, a couple of guys that had come with you from L.A. to St. Louis, and then Kevin Carter was the original St. Louis Ram. How cool was it for you guys that you'd been beaten down for a few years here in St. Louis, but to turn it around like that in '99, especially for that little core group? What was that like?
That was really, really phenomenal because, for us, it had been a long, hard road of being a professional, of not having a lot of success in terms of winning seasons and getting into the playoffs and having opportunities to play for Super Bowls. So when we did get our opportunity, right, we knew that we had to grasp it with everything that we had, and we knew that this might be our only opportunity to make a run at the Super Bowl. And so the intensity in with which we prepared, the attention to detail that we had in terms of our preparation to make sure that we were going to be successful on game day, everything was very, very heightened due to the fact that we had such an arduous journey and path, into the playoffs and into the Super Bowl.
What's your most vivid memory of the '99 season? It can be off the field, on the field. Is there something that stands out for you?
Yeah, there's one particular play that I always talk about where it was kind of special just because of my teammate, and I knew he was a special player when he joined our team. I knew he took us immediately to another level, and it's Marshall Faulk. Marshall Faulk gets a lot of credit, as being one of the greatest running backs, to ever play the game. But I think, when people really look at the game, I don't think that he really gets enough credit in terms of where he should be. Is he top 10? Is he top 5? For me, he's a top 3 of all time. And, he's that special. I remember there was one play where we were in San Francisco. I'm sitting on the bench. It's about 3rd and 10. They're going in. They're on like the plus 30, plus 25-yard line. Kirk throws a check down to Marshall. Marshall runs out. The linebacker has both of his feet wrapped up, and they're side by side, and he can't move his feet. And there's 3 defenders from the San Francisco 49ers bearing down on him. And mind you, he's probably like 4 yards short of the first down and can't move his feet. And I'm sitting there, and I'm probably about 15, 20 yards away because I'm on the bench, and the play is close to the sideline where we were. And I tell you what, it was like something out of the Matrix. Couldn't move his feet. All 3 defenders, he made a move like Neo. Every defender missed him, and then he laid forward for the first down. I had never seen anything like that before in my entire life, and I've been watching football since the 60s.
Oh, man. How about that? Do you remember the run against Cleveland where nobody blocked and he just...
Absolutely. Yeah, see, that was one where it was like everyone got to see that. But there was like this one particular... So it was just like that, but just imagine him doing the same thing without moving his feet and still making 3 guys miss. It was like, it was unbelievable. I'd never seen anything like it before in my life.
Well, Todd Lyght has done a lot of coaching since his playing days concluded at the college and pro levels. Now you're the defensive coordinator at Orange Lutheran, top 20 team in the country. First of all, congratulations on the great start.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we had a great opener against Sarah Gardena. Really talented team. I think when we played them, they were probably top 10 in the state of California. Got off to a great start. I believe that score was 21-13. Defense played phenomenal.
You're going to play the top 3 teams in the country this year on your schedule, right?
We have the hardest schedule in the country. So Mater Dei's number 1, Bishop Gorman's number 2. We play St. Francis, which is number 14, Friday. Next week we play Bishop Gorman, which is number 2. St. John Bosco, which I think is 3 or 4. We got them in a couple of weeks, and we finished the season with the number 1 team in the country.
That's amazing. Hey, Todd, was there somebody here in St. Louis? You mentioned Bud Carson dialing up blitzes for you. Who influenced your coaching career?
You know what? I would have to say Dick Vermeil. Dick Vermeil, just the type of man he was and just the type of coach he was in terms of caring about players and really wanting to help them, reach their full potential. I think that he did such a great job when he took over the organization is just trying to understand us as people and to help us, reach our goals because, like we talked about, it had been a very, very hard struggle for players that were, very talented. I remember there were times when I should have been selected to the Pro Bowl, but I wasn't based upon the lack of success that we had as a team. With the Pro Bowl structure set up, it was 3 corners or 3 particular players from a particular position that would go from the NFC, 3 particular from the AFC. Well, now it's this, they take the 6 best, right? It could be 4 guys from the NFC, 2 guys or 5 guys from the AFC and 1 guy from the NFC. If it had been that type of structure, I would have had a lot more Pro Bowls. And so that was really tough because, there were times when I was playing really, really elite football, but I wasn't getting the recognition. And it really wasn't about that. It was just like not having success in winning games and not getting the recognition that I thought I deserved was really, really tough. But at the end of the day, for me, more than anything, it was all about winning championships. And to have that opportunity to do it in St. Louis, such a great sports town, they supported us through thick and thin. And I think that, our journey from L.A. to St. Louis and having that opportunity to play in front of that wonderful fan base was truly amazing. And I cherish that moment in time because it really, really, truly is special.
Well, Todd Lyght, you are a beloved figure here. You're in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, and we remember you fondly. It's unbelievable that it's been 25 years, but, man, it's great to hear your voice.
Yeah, thank you so much, Randy. I appreciate you, buddy.
That's Todd Lyght. He was one of those guys. I always enjoy players that once they're out of the locker room like to interact, and Dick Vermeil just collected great people, and we saw that last Saturday night over at the ballpark. And Brooke, you saw it on Friday night with the gala. But Todd Lyght was a guy that would see you in the hallway and say, hey, let's go just talk some football. So you go somewhere, you could go in the lobby of Rams Park or just go hang out in the back, and we just talk football. And he taught me a lot, but he also had great foresight, great understanding of what was coming up. And one of the reasons that I feel like I got credibility with the fans is because guys like Todd Lyght told me what was going on.
Loved his story about Trent going to the secondary and saying, all right, what do you got? Well, we'll show you back-to-back picks on possessions. That was great. The Lou? It's Todd Lyght?
Todd Lyght was the first to say the Lou.
So do we need to change everything? Change Google? And
I think so. Now, I don't know if Nelly would say that country grammar was a product of something that Todd Lyght said.
Maybe.
But I like Todd Lyght, and I know he said it in 1995, so I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt here.
We need to get Nelly on the show.
We do. And by the way, the Cardinal City Connect jerseys, the Lou. Thank you, Todd Lyght.
Do you guys like those, by the way?
Thank you, Todd Lyght.
I like them, love them.
Yeah. I know that a lot of people didn't like them to begin with, but I actually see them around town a lot. I think they look pretty cool.
Yeah.
Compared to a lot of the other new City Connects, I think it's way better than a lot of the other ones that I've seen across the league.
I agree 100%. By the way, the Orange Lutheran Lancers are now 4-1 on the season, and they still have to play, actually coming up in 2 weeks, they're going to play the number 2 team in the country, and then they wrap up with Mater Dei, the number 1 team in the country.
What's amazing to me is how many of these players from the greatest show on turf have advanced their lives, their careers with football, whether they're a coach, radio analyst, working at NFL Network. It's amazing how many of these guys have moved on to different elements in their life, but always surrounded by football.
It's unbelievable. If you look at Marshall Falk, he did broadcasting. Kurt's in broadcasting. Roland Williams is in broadcasting. Torrey Holt is on Sirius XM. Orlando did some broadcasting. Mike Rudari, Adam Timmerman both got into coaching. Isaac could have done anything he wanted and got into coaching. London is the analyst now for Washington Commanders game. We all know about the success of DeMarco Farr's career. Kevin Carter is on CBS television. We heard him a couple of weeks ago. Todd Lyght, Dexter McLeon is coaching. You go up and down that roster. Jeff Wilkins is a special teams coach at Mount Union University. You go up and down the roster. It's remarkable how many people from that team have had great success.
I wonder what they would say in their coaching philosophy, how much it's predicated on Dick Vermeil.
100%. Literally 100% of the people that I ask say that Dick Vermeil had such an amazing effect on their lives. If you ask Mike Jones, who influenced you most in your coaching? Obviously, we just asked Todd Lyght that question. He said that. Kevin Carter gets a text twice a week from Coach Vermeil. Mike Rudari was telling me that when he got into broadcasting, Coach Vermeil called and said, hey, are you prepared? And Mike Rudari said, I think so. And Coach said, if you think so, you aren't prepared. So the next day, a big FedEx box shows up on Mike Rudari's doorstep. And once it arrives, Vermeil calls him. He said, I spent 4 hours on the phone with Vermeil, and he gave me a master's class in how to be a broadcaster.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Hearing those stories, too, this past Friday, obviously I wasn't here to talk about on Monday, but just I never get tired of hearing Isaac Bruce, Marshall Falk talk about everything that Dick Vermeil did for them. And I know that there was definitely some stories that Marshall shared about maybe where he didn't see eye to eye with things with Dick Vermeil, especially when it came to practice, from what I understand with some of the stories. But he mentioned the broadcasting side of things, too, about how much Dick Vermeil helped him with that.
It's amazing.
What is Marshall doing? I mean, he was at, I am seated, he was at the Ascension Charity Classic, so he participated. It was the Lou. There it is again, against Mizzou. Got a great golf swing, so I'm wondering if he's just playing a lot of golf and hanging out.
He is playing golf and playing well.
Yeah.
But he's also doing some financial planning for people with a lot of money.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
He's a guy that held on to his money. He's got a beautiful home in San Diego, doing really well. By the way, 5 of his kids, he's got 1 kid that's still here in St. Louis. 5 of his kids are through college, graduated. So, he's done very well, Marshall Falk.
Good for him.
And he will be on with us on this segment later in the season as well. So looking forward to that.
Anybody turn you down, Randy, and said, hell no, I'm not talking to you?
I got one of my favorite things that has ever happened to me. A couple of things. Number one, when Coach Vermeil went into the Hall of Fame, I think I've told this story on the air before. Michelle and I were there to cover it. And it's Martz, Jay Zygmunt, Vermeil, and I think Kevin Warren was there. And they're all talking, and I'm just listening. I'm just sitting, taking it all in. And somebody says, hey, can we get a picture? And everybody says, yeah, sure. And I just continue to sit there. Coach Vermeil says, hey, Randy, you got to get into this. You're a part of this. And so he makes you feel a part of the team. And then the other one is when a guy like Toby Wright, who didn't get to play for that team, his career ended in 1997. I see Toby for the first time in 25, literally a quarter century. Hey, Randy, how's it going? That group of players, along with the 80s Cardinals, not that I ever hung out with them or anything, but they became the best friends among athletes that I ever had. Every single one of those guys is great.
When you get respect, it's through them teaching you the game.
Yeah.
Because we don't know the game as well as they do.
Right.
We can analyze, we can talk about it. It's what we do on this show, but they know the game. They played it. And no one knows it better than they do.
It was so cool. I introduced myself to Ernie Conwell because, again, it's been 25 years. He says, Randy, I'll never forget you. You were in there every day.
Right.
So I think that's another part of it is being there every day so that you can learn.
And you take the good with the bad. And sometimes there's some bad that goes along with that, too. They listen.
Bad with those teams.
Family listens, too.
Yep, no doubt about it. Coming up, we've got the fight on 101 ESPN.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Brooke Grimsley here for your Redbird report. Eric Fedde had his best start with the Cardinals last night, allowing just one run and striking out 10 over 7 innings, leading to a 5-2 victory over the Rockies. Ryan Helsley needed just one pitch to get a double play to earn his 48th save of the season, tying the team record set by Trevin Rosenthal in 2015. Kyle Gibson will get the start today as the Cardinals try to complete a sweep of the 3-game series. First pitch is at 2:10.
The Redbird report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals yesterday with a win over the Rockies, 5-2. Eric Fedde with his best start in a Cardinals uniform. 7 innings pitched, 6 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 10 strikeouts. Ryan Helsley, also a big night for him as he logged save number 48, tying Ryan Franklin for the Cardinals, Trevor Rosenthal, for the Cardinals franchise best season lead with a 1-pitch save, getting Hilliard to ground into a game-ending double play there for the Cardinals. They are back in action today, 2:10 first pitch as they try to go for the sweep of the Rockies. It'll be Kyle Gibson on the mound for the Cardinals facing off against the lefty Kyle Freeland for the Rockies. Freeland on the season 5-8 with a 4.95 ERA. Last night, Blues remain winless in preseason as they lose to the Blue Jackets 3-0. That is your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Welcome back to the opening drive. Brooke, Dan, Randy, and Rocky here, and it is time for the fight. And our fighter this morning is Jonathan. Jonathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Is this your first time facing Randy in the fight?
No, ma'am. We have tied in the past. I won in the past. So, no, it's pretty much an ongoing battle.
Ooh, yeah. You have the history. You also have the confidence, I can tell, Jonathan.
That's right. I'm ready.
Okay, ready for question number 1? Here we go.
Let's
Only
go.
3 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era have logged a 30-plus touchdown season in both the AFC and NFC. Warren Moon, Tom Brady, and who else? Is it Carson Palmer, Drew Brees, or Rich Gannon?
Drew Brees.
Final answer, Jonathan?
Yes, sir.
Okay, who is the only tight end in NFL history with multiple 100-catch seasons? Is it Jason Witten, Dallas Clark, or Travis Kelce?
I don't know why I want to go with Dallas Clark, but let's go with Dallas Clark.
You don't know why, but you said it with somewhat of a conviction there, so we're going with Dallas Clark, and then we're going to question 3.
Excuse me. All right. Question 3. In the span of 1 week in March of 1994, Craig Janney was traded away from and then back to the St. Louis Blues. Which team was on the other end of both of those deals? Was it the Boston Bruins, Vancouver Canucks, or San Jose Sharks?
Vancouver.
And question 4, the Cardinals were the first team to be awarded the current trophy for winning the World Series, although it was not yet named the Commissioner's Trophy. Which year did this happen? Was it 44, 67, or 82?
1944.
All right, let me go grab Randy.
Jonathan, how are you feeling after that?
I am okay. I'm doing okay with it. I wish I would have changed one of my answers, but I will.
Which one were you kind of maybe feeling like you could have gone another way with?
The Dallas Clark answer. I kind of wanted to go with something else, but it's okay.
Yeah. Well, you just trust your gut. Maybe it works out. Here comes Randy in right now. Grapes in hand and some sort of beverage. I couldn't see what it was.
Just this may.
Oh, no Mountain Dew today.
How do you know?
Oh, is that Mountain Dew in there? Yes.
There you go.
We are all powered by Mountain Dew, Sudafed, and Mucinex, and of course Ricola this morning.
And coffee.
And coffee. Ricola. Ready to say hi to Jonathan.
Jonathan, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Mr. Carricker. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for listening, and thanks for playing. We do appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Ready for question number 1?
I'm ready.
Only 3 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era have logged a 30-plus touchdown season in both the AFC and NFC. Warren Moon, Tom Brady, and who else?
Moon and Brady in the Super Bowl era. Let's think about this for a second. Let's see. So, well, we got to run our own teams here, don't we? I don't think Montana did it with San Francisco or with the Chiefs. Let's see, Chiefs, Raiders. Cardinals. Well, you know who it could have been? I'm just hanging out west here. But Carson Palmer could have been a guy, right? Theoretically, with the Bengals. I don't think he did anything with the Raiders. And then with the Cardinals, he might have been. Let's see if there's anybody else that fits that mold. The Vikings, I don't think Randall Cunningham or Jeff George. Vikings, Colts, Falcons. I don't get the vibe with Jeff George. So let's see. Falcons, Saints, Panthers. Kerry Collins was it? I'll do the lifeline because there's just so many names that are popping into my mind here.
Okay. Carson Palmer, Drew Brees, or Rich Gannon?
I don't think Gannon ever did it in the NFC. I don't think Brees ever threw 30 with the Chargers. So I will go Carson Palmer.
Final answer?
Yes, sir.
Question 2. Who is the only tight end in NFL history with multiple 100-catch seasons?
Only tight end with multiple 100-catch seasons. I am going to go with the guy who's got the most catches, Tony Gonzalez.
Question 3.
In the span of 1 week in March of 1994, Craig Janney was traded away from and then back to the St. Louis Blues. Which team was on the other end of both of those deals? Excuse me.
That was the infamous Peter Nedved signing, and that would have been Craig Janney and Vancouver, the Vancouver Canucks.
Final answer?
Yes, sir.
Question 4. The Cardinals were the first team to be awarded the current trophy for winning the World Series. Although it was not yet named the Commissioner's Trophy, which year did this happen?
Which year did the Cardinals win the first Commissioner's Trophy?
It was the current trophy, but it was not yet named the Commissioner's Trophy.
Okay.
But it was the same. It was the same design of trophy in the first time
with all the pennants
was
and
awarded.
flags.
Yes, it was the first time it was awarded.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to, because we didn't have a ton of teams and a ton of pennants in the 60s, because from that time on, we added franchises like the Expos, Padres, Mariners, Jays. So we went from like 22 to 26 teams pretty quickly. I'm going to guess it was 1982. I'm going to say the Commissioners, the current iteration of the World Championship Trophy was 1982. A wild guess, but my logic is predicated upon the number of pennants that you would have had to build a circle around the entire thing.
That's an interesting look at it.
That's a really good piece of logic to look at it from. All righty then. We do have a winner in today's fight. It was a close one today. Jonathan said he's lost to Randy, and he's beaten Randy in a tiebreaker before. But is he going to walk away with an outright win in today's fight? Or does Randy Carrick roll on with another victory this week? Ring that bell.
Just win, baby.
I'm sorry, Jonathan. Randy Carrick just got you. He beat you 2-1 in today's fight.
2-1. Okay.
Sorry, Jonathan. We'll read the questions and the answers here. Only 3 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era have logged a 30-plus touchdown season in both the AFC and the NFC. Warren Moon, Tom Brady, and yes, Drew Brees did not do it for the San Diego Chargers, which means Carson Palmer is the third one to do it, the Cardinals and the Bengals there. And yeah, Rich Gannon came up very short for the Vikings, only like 16. Montana had 16 in his career high for the Chiefs. I'm blanking on the other ones I checked. Who's the only tight end in NFL history with multiple 100 catches seasons? Right jersey, wrong tight end. Travis Kelce has 3 100-catch seasons in his career. He's the only tight end with multiple 100-catch seasons. There's like 9, 10, 12 100-catch seasons, but it's all spread out except for Kelce because there's no other options for Pat Mahomes over these years.
That's true. Yeah.
Like Jonathan answered Dallas Clark, and the issue there is Clark has a 100-catch season, but Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, Brandon Stokely. I mean, there was always other options for Manning to hit, so it was hard for Dallas Clark to have multiple 100-catch seasons.
Right. Kelsey only has 8 catches this year in 3 games.
Believe me.
Yeah.
He's a member of Taking Shots with Ricky.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You are taking some shots.
In the span of 1 week in March of '94, Janney was traded away and then back to the St. Louis Blues. Which team was on the other end of both those deals? It is the Vancouver Canucks. A very rare time a player is traded to and from a team without ever playing a game for them.
The late, great Mike Shanahan told me because the Canucks wanted Brendan Shanahan as compensation at that point. He said, if we lose Shanahan, I'm going to resign from the job as chairman of the Blues.
Did he really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He was amazing for this town.
He was great. Yeah, he was awesome.
And the last question, the Cardinals were the first team to be awarded the current trophy for winning the World Series, although it was not yet named the Commissioner's Trophy. It actually happened in 1967 when they beat the Boston Red Sox. The trophy at the time was designed by the LG Balfour Company. Randy, if you want to see a picture of what the original Commissioner's Trophy, not named the Commissioner's Trophy, looked like, it was redesigned by Tiffany in 2000, actually. So through the 90s and 80s, it looked like the gold one that I just showed Randy. It was redesigned in 2000, but it was named the Commissioner's Trophy in 1985 was the first time it was ever awarded as the Commissioner's Trophy, but 67 was the first time a World Series trophy was awarded to the St. Louis Cardinals for beating the Boston Red Sox. A 2-1 win for Randy Carricker in the fight. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining the fight and joining the show today.
All right. Thank you very much. Good to have you with us, Jonathan, here on 101 ESPN. By the way, our friends at the Missouri Tiger Club of St. Louis are going to have a get-together at Llewellyn's in Webster Groves tonight. Happy hour until from 6 to 7, and then a Q&A with Howard Richards at 7 o'clock until 8 o'clock or later. If you want to talk some Mizzou football tonight, Llewellyn's at Webster Groves. You can learn more on the Tiger Club Facebook page, or just go to their website. Just Google Tiger Club STL.
That's one good dude. I love listening to he and Mike.
Yeah,
he and Mike
great.
do a great job, and Chris Trevino on the sidelines. It's a crisp, clean broadcast. They do a great job.
They do a fantastic job. All right, coming up here on 101 ESPN, we've got a quick one for you. After Andy Reid, who are the next 4 best current coaches in the NFL? That's coming your way on 101 ESPN. lot of good coaching taking place in the National Football League these days, and we're all going to give you our 4 best coaches. We all can agree, by the way, we have consensus that Andy Reid is, and it's not even close in my mind, the best coach in the NFL right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
He's the man. He's been to a Super Bowl with Donovan McNabb as his quarterback. He's been to multiple Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes. He's won divisions with people like Alex Smith and Michael Vick, so he's number 1. So our charge today is to bring you the next 4. And I had a great deal of difficulty with this from a football standpoint and from a non-football standpoint, okay? I have trouble leaving Mike Tomlin out because he's never had a losing season and because he's done great things. He's gotten a team with Mason Rudolph to the playoffs. That being said, and I'm leaving Matt LaFleur out, who earlier this week I called the best coach in the NFL, kind of jokingly, but he's won games with Malik Willis. Couldn't do that. Mike Vrabel couldn't do that. So
that's for sure.
Yeah. So I'm leaving Matt LaFleur out. My number 2 is Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan has been through a ton of turnover in San Francisco, right? He's been to a Super Bowl with Jimmy G and with Brock Purdy, and he's dealt with a ton of injuries, so I have him as my number 2.
So we can have the same ones you said.
Yes.
My number 1 was Mike Tomlin. My number 2 was Kyle Shanahan.
You have Tomlin in yours then?
Yes.
I do not.
Oh, this is on the outside looking in.
Yeah,
Really?
I've got Tomlin and LaFleur not making my list.
I got you.
In my list, I have Matt LaFleur making the list because of what he's able to do. He's able to really get the most out of what you mentioned there, Malik Willis. I think that the way that also they've been able to build up Jordan Love, I know that we would like to see him again here soon, but I mean, I think that everything that he's done, he's a really underrated head coach in the NFL. So I have him on my list. I also have Mike Tomlin on my list. I don't know how you could leave him off your list,
Here's
Randy,
how.
because another year, another Mike Tomlin coach Steelers exceeding the expectations. The fact that they're able to get off to this start with Justin Fields as their quarterback, and they have underperformed still to the point of not what you were expecting offensively, but still they are able to find a way to win.
Well, let me give you my number 2 then. It's the guy that regularly beats Tomlin in the AFC North. It's John Harbaugh, who won a Super Bowl with a regular drop-back quarterback in Joe Flacco, completely changes his offensive philosophy and is able to adapt to the skill set of Lamar Jackson, another coach that has had tremendous turnover defensively. If you go back and look at their Super Bowl, their first Super Bowl team, not a single player exists from that team. They've been through multiple defensive coordinators, yet they always seem to have a top 5 defense in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I've got, after Reid and Kyle Shanahan, John Harbaugh is my number 3.
Okay. I didn't do mine in any particular ranking, but do we just go ahead and run these down?
Let's
or are
run
we
them
doing
down.
Okay. So I have Mike Tomlin, I have Kyle Shanahan, and then I also have Matt LaFleur, as we talked about. I also put Dan Campbell on my list.
Okay, good.
No one's going to like this. I got Sean McVay.
He's my number 5.
Yep. 38 years old, looks rejuvenated this year, I would say. They've had a lot of turnover. They lose Aaron Donald, but he's gotten the most out of the teams that he's had, in my opinion. So I had Sean McVay in there. My top 4 were Mike Tomlin in no particular order, Kyle Shanahan. I had John Harbaugh as well. He's got a 612 winning percentage, man. He figures it out. And Sean McVay was my other guy that's my top 4.
So my order is Shanahan number 2, John Harbaugh 3, Jim Harbaugh, who's been to a Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick as his quarterback, obviously won a college championship this past year. I've got Jim Harbaugh as number 4, and McVay is my number 5, going to Super Bowls with a couple of different quarterbacks. We'll see how things change when he loses the second best defensive player in the history of the league. They're 1-2 so far this year.
And when Matthew Stafford calls it quits.
Right. Is he going to be the quarterback whisperer when he actually has to, although he did a decent job with Goff, I think he just gave up on Goff.
Yeah, I think that also with Dan Campbell, too, I know that that's probably a surprising one to have on my list. He's a little bit of a wild card, but this is why this is kind of my personal preference list of just what I like head coach-wise when we're talking about the top 4. I think he's a wild card, but he's an entertaining one at that.
Yeah.
And I also think he's a really good coach that is able to get a lot of his players. So, you know, I like him. I think Kyle Shanahan is the easy one there. I still can't believe that you left Mike Tomlin off. I think that's absolutely nuts.
Well, he's definitely in my top 7. But if I were...
What is missing from Mike Tomlin being on your list? Like, what do you need?
Well, the interesting thing that I have is Kyle Shanahan's been to 2 Super Bowls with 2 different quarterbacks. John Harbaugh has had a ton of success with multiple quarterbacks. Jim Harbaugh has had a ton of success with multiple quarterbacks. And McVay has had a ton of success Mike Tomlin has been great with Ben Roethlisberger, basically a 500 coach without Ben Roethlisberger.
That's fair. I think, though, the edge I would give to him, and I'm with Brooke, he's in my top 4 here. He has won the Super Bowl, as you mentioned, but he's in his 17th season. He's made the playoffs 11 times.
It's amazing.
Yes.
And never had a losing season. So I give him credit for that. I like the Jim Harbaugh one. I want to see more of what he does with the Chargers. And he's kind of going with the whole idea of running the football, how that carries out throughout a season. Can the team stay healthy? Can Herbert stay healthy? And if he gets to the playoffs with that team, that cast of characters, he's got to be in my top 4.
If he gets to the playoffs with Easton Stick as his quarterback.
That's what I'm saying, man. If he does that, he's got to be in the top 4.
Yeah. Who's got it better than us? Nobody.
I love that.
Me too. I think
he's
it's great.
fun to watch.
Yeah. He goes through life, and his team does, with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Now, going back to Tomlin, always a strong foundation on defense. Do you give him any credit for that?
Yes.
Yes.
I think Tomlin is awesome. I don't think he's bad. He doesn't make my top 5 in the NFL. That's all. But I think he's great.
And that's fair.
And I can't believe Steelers fans that want him fired.
That's insane.
That's always nuts to me.
Yeah.
Made the playoffs with that team last year. What he's doing this year with Justin Fields, as Brooke mentioned.
Yep.
Done a good job.
He's great. Coming up next, we've got a quick rush hour reset for you here on 101 ESPN.
recapping the biggest stories of the day on the opening drive with a Rush Hour Reset.
Brought to you by James Carlton State Farm. Are your car and home insurance rates competitive?
Find out at carltoninsurance.net.
Only 4 games left for the 2024 Cardinals, and the first of those 4 will be this afternoon at 2:10 in Colorado at Coors Field. Kyle Gibson going for the Cardinals against Colorado's Kyle Freeland. Last night, the Cardinals win and clinch at least a 500 season with the victory, the 5-2 victory over the Rockies. Yeah. We are 500. We are 500. The Cardinals 81-77 after last night's victory.
Does it really matter if they finish above 500 to you guys?
Danny, you mentioned that these feel like spring training games. I agree with that.
Yeah, the lack of intensity in the games. You can see it. It's just a different game. Now, Wynn, Sajasi, Herrera, young guys, Pages, each had 2 hits. That's good to see. Interesting, Herrera and Pages both in the lineup at the same time. Found that a little interesting in the lineup. But I guess the big story coming out of last night, Ryan Helsley, if you're just waking up and finding out about a Cardinal win, but Ryan Helsley picks up his 48th save, and that is tied now with Trevor Rosenthal for the all-time single-season leader in Cardinals history.
Yeah, I think that it does feel like spring training right now. And somebody texted in earlier when we were discussing this and saying, like, hey, a win is a win. I don't like the downplaying of this. It's not downplaying. It's just being realistic, like you have to be with this season when looking at it. And being 500 is fine, but this has been a 500 team all season, and it wasn't enough to get you back into the playoffs this year. And I think that's the part where a lot of people feel like, about the season, is because the goal should always be for the St. Louis Cardinals to be back in the playoffs and competing in the playoffs. That's something that I think a lot of fans expect here in St. Louis, and rightfully so. We've talked about if fans are spoiled. Yeah, because you've had so much success here that's the expectation, is to continue to have success after success. And it seemed like last year was marketed as almost as a one-off. It clearly wasn't. You're not making it back to the playoffs this year. Yes, you will finish with a 500 record and better to end the season, but I don't think that necessarily matters, because it didn't get you back to the ultimate goal, which is in the playoffs, and also getting past, not just in the playoffs, but past that first series of the playoffs, I think, is the expectation here.
And the other day, Wilson Contreras said the Cardinals should own this division. And right now, the Cardinals might not like to hear this, but Milwaukee owns this division. Somebody else does. And that's just not something that a guy like Wilson Contreras, who's 32 years old, he doesn't remember the Cardinals not owning this division until the last few years.
I think next week is one of the most important weeks the Cardinals will have in the next couple of years. And it'll be dependent on what they want to do with the front office. They've already said that there are changes coming up inside the organization. And then you have questions like, do you keep Ryan Helsley? What do you do with the Michaelis deal? Where are you at with Mets? Do you bring back Paul Goldschmidt? What's wrong with Nolan Gorman? Is Walker here to stay? I mean, these are all questions that will face them starting Monday as they get to work for 2025.
I'm nervous. I guess that's the best. I wonder how other fans are feeling going into this. If you're excited because you know that there will be some sort of change, or if you're anxious. Well, I wonder what the feeling is amongst the fans of going into next week, because you don't know which way things are going to go.
Well, the fans want changes. The fans want transactions. And I think most fans don't think the Cardinals have it in them to make those sorts of changes. I'm kind of getting the feeling that there are changes. Well, there definitely are changes afoot. It's just a matter of how transcendent the changes will be for the organization.
So I mentioned this earlier, 89 wins was the average of the wild card teams last year. So if you get to 85, 86 this year, are you necessarily blowing this thing up? I mean, there's probably some tweaks that clearly you can make with the team, but are you just going to blow the whole thing up? There needs to be some changes. It'll just be the direction of what they want to go. I mean, if you wanted to roll out the same rotation, you basically could do that. Me personally, I think they need to find some kind of offense. They need to get a bat. I mean, what they did with runners in scoring position is not going to win you games, and they need help in that regard, big time. Clearly,
especially when you're talking about what you had with Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. Well, I guess the biggest question is what happens with Paul Goldschmidt this offseason, too. That's another question that they have to answer. And Nolan Arenado, will we see him maybe get back to what we have seen in years past? There's a lot of questions surrounding it.
I think the other thing, too, is that you got to get butts in the seats.
Yes.
And what's going to get people interested in that? I mean, you can do some front office maneuvering if you wanted to, but you still need players that bring you to that. And what's going to bring you to it? Winning. So how do you get back to winning is what they need to figure out.
Thursday Night Football tonight here on 101 ESPN. The Giants and the Cowboys pregame at 6:30. And then tomorrow night, actually Saturday night, the Blues back in action against the Blackhawks. And that pregame is at 5 o'clock for you here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Speaking of the Blues, Jeremy Rutherford joins us next, our Blues insider from The Athletic. That's your rush hour reset here on 101 ESPN. Our Blues insider from The Athletic is Jeremy Rutherford, is with us now on the Celebrity Line on 101 ESPN. Brooke, Dan, and Randy with you. JR, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Good morning. Hey, you guys might get a kick out of this. I saw our friend Joey Vitale in the locker room yesterday, and it was the first time I had seen him in a while. And he said, "How was your summer?" And I said, "Oh, just trying to keep those things alive." And just like he told you guys, his kid. And typical Joey, he says something funny like that on the radio last week, talking about watching his kids and making sure they stay alive. And when I said that back to him, I don't think he even remembered that he said it. So there's Joey.
Yeah, he always has a lot to say, doesn't he? And I'm sure it's hard for him to keep up with. All right, you have an article right now out there, Jeremy, on The Athletic, and it's about bold predictions that you have for the season. As you know, we're a show where we like bold predictions and hot takes, and man, you have a lot of them in this article. I'm going to start with this one, though, because it really grabbed my attention. You have Jake Neighbors signing an 8-year extension. So what is your bold prediction about that and how that will unfold?
Well, he obviously had a great season last year. We all know that. And he's entering the last year of his entry-level deal, so he's a restricted free agent this upcoming season. I actually showed him yesterday in the locker room that bold prediction. I said, hey, I got you for an 8-year contract. What do you think about that? And he said, I'll take that. And he did point out there have been no talks, and I think that's to be expected. Doug Armstrong did say this offseason, guys, that he wants Jake to come out and prove it. Prove that last year just wasn't a fluke and that he can be that kind of player. So when it comes down to it, they're going to try to re-sign him for sure. And is it going to be a 5-year deal? Is it going to be an 8-year deal? My bold prediction, I went with the 8-year deal just to get Jake Neighbors, who's a big part of this future, locked up for a long time.
What have you thought of the first couple of weeks of Drew Bannister having his own training camp and running that the way that he wants? What have you thought so far?
Yeah, I'm happy for Drew because just such a tough situation last year, Dan, coming in for a very popular coach. And then, you don't have any NHL head coaching experience. A lot of the veterans weren't familiar with him, and he had to hold them accountable. That was the number one priority that Doug Armstrong gave him. And so, we saw that he sat Pavel Buchnevich, he sat Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. I'm sure with maybe some of those guys, it rubbed them the wrong way a little bit. And so he comes in this year with a fresh slate in terms of training camp and trying to implement the things he wants to do. And Dan, I mentioned in the article today, if you've missed the first week of training camp under Drew Bannister, you've missed him yelling quite a few times. There are a number of times this week where I'm sitting in the press box and all of a sudden you hear Drew Bannister barking and throwing his arms up in the air and a few curse words mixed in between. And he said, we've got to get things right. I asked him what in particular he was yelling about, and he said our sticks, our stick play isn't up to NHL caliber, and he let the team know about it. But you talk to those guys, there's a lot of respect for Drew Bannister. So I just think it's him reestablishing that authority, and I think we'll see how the players respond, and so far it's been good.
Jerry, you also write in The Athletic today that Philip Broberg looks like the real deal. What makes you believe that?
Well, and this is just from, I'm glad you bring this up because, is he out there playing like a Hall of Famer in practice in these preseason games? No, you can't say that. But in terms of a big body, 6'4", 212 pounds, who can skate, he's a player that the Blues just haven't had in a while, especially on that left side. And when you think about him being 23 years old, and I know he's just got the 2-year contract, but you would think that if the Blues are going to invest that much in him, with the draft pick compensation for the offer sheet, this is a guy they're going to try to keep around for a while. And you just picture a guy who's going to come into his own and be a mainstay on that left side for years to come. But in terms of him looking like the real deal in practice, it's just that skating ability, the ability to get up ice, close things out, and be a good partner for either Colton Parayko or Justin Falk, whoever it turns out to be.
You also have in the article, too, that you predict that Pavel Buchnevich will be back at wing by November. What all would have to happen for that to work out?
Yeah, so let's keep in mind in that article, these are bold predictions. And in the past, sometimes with these bold predictions, we've gotten a little wacky. Like Jordan Kyrou is going to break Red Berenson's 6 goals in one game record. And, some of that stuff gets a little bit outlandish. So for this article in particular, I tried to keep it where topics that were debatable. So I believe that could be a possibility. Buchnevich could stay at center all year, or he could move to the wing by November, which was my bold prediction. And, just kind of the reasoning behind that, they're going to need him to score goals. And I know the winning percentage with him at center is 600, point percentage is good. But they're going to need some offense from Pavel Buchnevich. He scored 30 goals on the wing a couple years ago. They do have some some depth at center when you talk about Robert Thomas. Braden Shen can play there. They brought in Roddick Foxa. They're looking at Alexander Texier. You have Dvorsky, of course, who could be with the team at some point. So they've got some players who can play there, and I just felt like, you know what, I'm going to throw this bold prediction out that Buchnevich is going to be back at the wing. But please, if he does play center all season long, please don't send me the article here in a couple months.
How has Dvorsky looked? And then I'll follow that up with Bolduc. How about those two young players?
Yeah, so watching Dvorsky, he's made some plays where you just say, wow, that's a good prospect. That's the type of forward, and you expect that with a number 10 overall pick. That's a guy who's got NHL traits. But you see a few hiccups, and so I talked to Drew Bannister about him yesterday, Dan, and I said, you know, what do you see with Dvorsky? And he said, great when he has the puck, and when he doesn't have the puck, there are some things he could do better. And he pointed out supporting line mates rather. And what that means is puck support. It doesn't mean like not being behind them. It means, you know, helping them out with puck support when he doesn't have the puck. And so that's one thing. And then he said defensively, you know, anybody 19 years old who scores a ton of points and they're coming from junior, they're going to have to improve defensively. So I think he's looked good. I still think there's a ton of promise there. I don't know that he'll make the opening night roster, but it's not because he's not a good player or doesn't have a good NHL future. And then, Dan, with Bolduc, I think he's looked phenomenal. You know, I think he went into the offseason knowing that he had a real good chance to be a big part of this team. I think there's top 6 spots available that Bolduc could fulfill. And as long as we're sticking here with the bold prediction team, I had him finishing in the top 5 in goals for the Blues this year, which could mean as many as 25 goals if Bolduc's going to get into that top 5.
Wow, that is bold. I want to go back to the center conversation real quick because I saw Texier was playing center the other day. Is that also something that we should be looking at, and how do they feel about Texier right now?
Yeah, I think they're just kind of looking at that as an option. Texier is the player that the Blues got from the Columbus Blue Jackets in trade this offseason. He is a guy who was drafted as a center, 6'1", 201, but he did not play center the past couple of years with the Blue Jackets. And so he's kind of a middle 6 winger / center, and he started camp on the wing. He was playing on that I think it was the 4th line when he opened camp, and then now he has been getting some time in the center, as you mentioned, with Brandon Saad. So I did ask Drew Bannister about that as well. He said that'd be a conversation that we'd have with Texier if we wanted to move him to the center on a more regular basis. I think he's going to wind up being a wing, but like I said, they're just checking their options here.
We talk about all these young guys. I'm going to talk about an old guy and ask you about him, but Suter and his influence, have you seen that burst onto the scene a little bit with what he brings to the table?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, with Ryan, you know what you're going to get in terms of the play. Look, he's played 82 games the last 3 years in Dallas. He's been playing 19 minutes a game, so he stays healthy. He plays big minutes. And again, you just know what you're going to get. He's not the quickest guy out there, but he gets a little feisty in front of the net. And where this helps the Blues is that they anticipate that he'll be in that third pair with Matthew Kessel. I spent some time with Matthew Kessel at his locker a couple days ago talking to him, and he just said he's soaking it up. Just, you know, everything, trying to learn from Ryan Suter in terms of playing the way that he plays, because Matthew Kessel believes that's the type of game he wants to have in the NHL too. So Suter looked pretty good last night. A lot of ice time. You know, like I mentioned, I think he had 5 shots on net. So, you know, if guys like Scott Perunovich, P.O. Joseph, Tyler Tucker, those guys give the Blues a lot of depth on defense, but I think Ryan Suter is going to give the Blues a guy that they know they can plug into the lineup every night.
Hey, JR, one last thing. You mentioned the physicality that a guy like Holloway brings along with Joseph, and it seems like after the Stanley Cup, and Doug Armstrong always talked about how the game was morphing into a smaller, faster game, but it seems like this group of forwards, especially the 200-plus pound guys, they seem to be better players than the Blues have had in the last couple of years. Last year, for example, you had Blais, you had Kevin Hayes. The year before that, you had like a Logan Brown that was in camp, and a Noel Achari, who was an older player. It seems like you have younger players that are on an upward trajectory among that group of forecheckers now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you nailed it. You really did. And that's the point I was trying to make in that part of the article today. So the Blues wanted to upgrade the roster. They wanted it to be quicker. They also wanted it to be heavier. And I think they also needed these guys to be more assertive. And I think the players that they've added, you've got a combination of all that stuff. So, for players who aren't, for fans who aren't familiar with a Matthew Joseph from Ottawa or a Dylan Holloway from Edmonton, you're going to see them in a few weeks when they drop the puck on the regular season. And, I don't want to overpromise, and you're going to be watching the regular season game and say, this isn't the type of player, or this guy isn't as good as they were talking about during the preseason. These guys aren't going to come in and score 25 goals. But I think they give you every element that you just touched on, and I think they're better players, as you said, than some of the guys that we've seen in the Blues uniform the past couple of years in those bottom six roles. And then if you couple that, Randy, with the fact that you got to like the upside of a Toropchenko and what we've seen from him the past couple years, there's some good pieces in that bottom six, and I think what you're going to see is a group that's willing to get after it, and also a little bit of production compared to what we've seen in the past.
JR, have you guys peppered Drew Bannister with questions about how they haven't won a preseason game yet, just like Toronto media has with Craig Berube? I don't know if you saw that the other day, but his reaction, I think we've seen that a couple of times in some of his interviews.
Yeah, no, we have not. Yeah, Blues off to this 0-3 start, outscored 10-4, and I guess your preseason record and $5 will get you a coffee at Starbucks because it doesn't mean too much. But I have seen some of these responses from Craig Berube up in Toronto, and they don't surprise me. He's as laid back as they get, and it doesn't matter if you're asking him about Austin Matthews or you're asking him about a loss. He's going to tell you that, we'll be okay. Everything's fine.
JR, great stuff as always. Thanks so much for the time. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Yep, thanks, guys.
That's Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider from The Athletic here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, following yesterday's reporting, it seems like UNLV made promises that they failed to live up to for their quarterback, Matthew Sluka. That's next on 101 ESPN.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals last night with a 5-2 win over the Rockies. It was a big night for Ryan Helsley as he ties the franchise lead in a single season with his 48th save, with a one-pitch save getting Hilliard to ground into a game-ending double play in the Cardinals' victory. They will go for the sweep in the series today. 2:10 first pitch will be the righty Kyle Gibson facing off against the lefty for the Rockies, Kyle Freeland. Also last night, the Blues in action in preseason. They remain winless as they fall to the Blue Jackets 3-0. And week 4 of the NFL starts tonight. You can hear right here on 101 ESPN. It's Giants and Cowboys. Pregame starts at 6:30. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Brooke Grimsley, Matthew Rocky, or Randy Carricker. Okay, you got to think of, and I know we all have a lot of them, your one most OCD tendency. I was just overstacking Chick-fil-A sauces over by where the Chick-fil-A is. My most OCD tendency is that if somebody hands me back bills and they aren't all in the same order, it drives me nuts. I have to have my bills facing in the same order in my wallet. And when I get them back, if I get 4 1s and a 5 back, and one of the bills is not in order, I got to go through and get them all in order right away.
So you really do that?
I do that. And I also, this is really,
a lot of bills.
This is really bad. This is really a weird one. When I get gas in my car, I have to end on a 0 or a 50.
That is so very OCD.
Though. Yeah, what happens if it's already filled up, though?
I just move up. There's always a little bit more room in the gas tank for you.
Don't overfill your tank.
Yeah, you can't overfill it.
I don't care.
Well, and then we know the sauces. So mine is, and I think I've revealed this before, is that 3 is a lucky number for me. I like to do things in 3. So typically I have 3 drinks with me. I've told you that before. I have my hydro jug. I have hot tea today. I have coffee. I like 3s. I usually have 3s of everything, even in the mornings when I'm leaving and I kiss Stevie, my dog, goodbye, and my husband too. It's 3 times.
My husband too.
But Stevie's the last thing I see before I leave the house. Sure. I give her 3 kisses before I leave. It's just something, I don't know. I think I started it with tennis. Like I would bounce the ball 3 times before I served.
Sure. I get it.
Something like that happened along the way.
Nothing wrong with that, Danny.
Lines in a sidewalk. I don't step in those.
Good.
So I'm like doing, stepping in boxes as I go along. Yeah. If they're tight and smaller, I try not to step on the lines. And if they're bigger, then I take a couple steps and then step over the line. That's how I do it.
Yeah,
you don't want to break him on his back.
Matthew?
I don't know any off the top of my head. I have them. I have a ton of them. I just can't even name them off the top of my head. But yeah, I have a lot of them.
Okay, so one of the things that it is not for Matthew Sluka, now the former quarterback at UNLV, one of the things that he was not obsessed with was getting his contracts actually signed.
He should have.
Yes, he should have. But his agent admitted that all of the agreements that he signed were verbal. He didn't really sign any verbal agreements. So what are we supposed to think? If they don't have a written contract, and he's saying they didn't live up to their agreement, well, who knows what the agreement is if it wasn't in writing?
Exactly. It's a business. We know. It's a business now, especially with NIL now out there in the open, not behind the scenes or under the table or in cheeseburger bags anymore. It's all out there in the open. It's a business. And part of businesses, as we all know, just because it said something verbally, if it's a verbal agreement, that doesn't mean anything. You have to have it in writing. Whoever his agent is, I hope that he fired that person, because that is just absolutely ridiculous. This whole story is so interesting to me because as more and more continue to come out, the more confusing it was. So they were saying that an assistant coach promised, I believe, around $100,000 to him for him to be able to come over to UNLV. But then there was also reports that under Barry Odom's leadership that they have where all the players receive all the same NIL deal. So an assistant coach, for whatever reason, promised this to the quarterback, even though that's outside of what Barry Odom does for his typical players. So then that's where some of this comes into play of why they couldn't come to this agreement. Apparently they offered him around $3,000 a month, I believe it was the stipend, and that's probably what the other players are getting. He wanted more than that, and he was expecting more than that. It's just a terrible look all around, especially when you look at the NCAA, and Matthew pointed this this out yesterday, that it all comes back to the NCAA. There needs to be some sort of entity that really controls this, because college football, you can't have unrestricted transfer and yearly NIL. There's got to be some way to fix all of this.
Pay the players union. Unionize, and then some of this goes away.
It does. I know that there's reticence on the part of institutions to make players employees, but I think really that's the only way to go. Meanwhile, as this thing unfolds, here's Pete Thamel of ESPN.
Honestly, everybody's reaction was, we're shocked this hasn't happened sooner. And the NIL world, because essentially these programs outsource the payment through a third party. And the coaches technically, and I'll stress technically, can't negotiate these deals themselves. All those vagaries create wide open loopholes for things like this to happen, miscommunications, pointed fingers, etc. So on Thursday, we're going to get an update in the House versus the NCAA case, not because of this, just because it's plodding along in that way. This would seemingly, if this passes, the House settlement, allow revenue share and allow these schools to pay more above board and directly than they are right now. It's hard to prompt change in the NCAA, and the Sluka moment just comes at a reminder that we're at this weird crossroads right now. I think 10 years from now, we'll look back and be like, hey, remember when they had to pay the guys through the side door? So I think no one's certain if the House settlement is going to pass, but there's some momentum for it, and we'll know that in the next couple of weeks. If it doesn't, one administrator told me last week, there's no plan B, so never boring.
And I thought it was interesting yesterday that on the Paul Feinbaum show, Eli Drinkwitz, who has been a big proponent, obviously, of NIL and utilizing NIL, but he talked about how there just needs to be some guardrails in place, that they can't keep moving forward with what they have now. And this isn't what college football was meant to be. But at the end of the day, it's impossible to move forward under the system that they currently have.
This has been done before. And I think it's getting a light shed on this, because when you have a QB and you have a UNLV team, it's top 25 in the country, it's going to be magnified. For instance, USC lineman Bear Alexander, he's a 5-star guy. He's doing the same thing. He's going to redshirt too. I think that this, if nothing changed, this is going to be called opt-out week in college football. You'll have all kinds of people doing this and following suit. And, just take the red shirt, go in the transfer portal, or try to use it as leverage, get your NIL deal, and then move on.
And the reason for that, obviously, is because once you play a fourth game, you can't redshirt anymore.
Correct.
Exactly.
You have to have less than 4 games played to redshirt, right?
So I think more kids are going to do this.
Yeah. Well, remember Mike Gundy earlier this year, we played that sound about how he said the negotiations are over with NIL and they'll start again in December. There has to be some type of rule here. It is truly the Wild Wild West. And I want to make it clear, I have no problem with players getting paid. I'm glad that we're finally at this point where players can actually get money for their name, image, and likeness. We all saw what happened with Johnny Manziel, where, how many people are watching college football games every single weekend? There is a lot of money going in. It's great to see that the kids can finally get money for their name, image, and likeness. But I think the side of this is what you're seeing in this situation right here with Sluka, is that there's a lot of people who are opportunists, who take advantage of situations too. You also had reports that he was offered more money from another university, another college to transfer. And it seems like you have an agent too, that I know that verbal agreements can be enforceable in a certain sense, but you need that in writing, because then it's just saying, well, nobody actually agreed to that. Where's the proof of that? Where's the writing of it?
And the offer of $100,000 to Sluka came from the UNLV offensive coordinator. And when made aware of the offer, Barry Odom said, well, he can't do that. I'm in charge of that. I have to sign off on every NIL offer that we make. So the offensive coordinator was working outside of his purview, apparently. The quarterback and the agent bought into it, and as it turns out, somebody made a financial commitment for UNLV that they weren't allowed to make.
It's amazing, and I think we're going to hear more about it probably today and tomorrow. A lot of these kids are sitting there because now the light has been it's been brought to light of what's happened. And other kids are going to say, I feel the same way, and I'm getting it in my ear that I can get more money if I go somewhere else. Well, opt out of the deal, and all of a sudden, you're a free agent, and you get paid what you want to get paid.
By the way, there was a player who never played for Miami, their quarterback, a former quarterback, Jaden Rashada, who was offered $9.5 million, and Billy Napier at Florida, and the biggest booster for Florida, Hugh Hathcock, they backed out on the $9.5 million deal, and they're being sued now by Jaden Rashada.
How about Florida? They have the #1 recruiting class in the country, but because of NIL and because of other teams that pluck players away, how many of those kids are going to be around in year 3?
Yeah, none.
Probably none.
Yeah. And Billy Napier's not going to be there.
And he won't be there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to say, hey, we've got the #1 recruiting class, but then you look at it. What was the stat, guys, that I had the other day? There's like 3 players were remaining on Missouri's roster from the first time, 3 years ago that they lost to BC. There's so much player movement, it just doesn't matter.
It's amazing.
Yeah. At this point, though, too, when we were talking about where you have this kind of yearly NIL and unrestricted transfer policy with the NCAA and with college sports right now, perpetual free agency really doesn't exist in any sport. Is there a way to fix it now with college football? Is there a way to fix it with college sports?
It's got to be federally mandated, and that's why the House, the lawsuit is House versus NCAA, and there's going to be hopefully a settlement today. And until that gets fixed, there won't be anything. But I really do think there needs, and people hate to say or hate to think about, federal oversight for sports teams, but there needs to be in this situation.
In this situation, you have to, and the money's too big. I mean, you start looking, like you were talking about, Brooke, the amount of people that watch Tennessee and Oklahoma on Saturday night on ABC, it was a massive rating in the country. Those kids are making everybody money. So it's about money.
You have to collectively bargain. These college administrators are going to have to choke down the bile, and they're going to sit on the other side of the table from a bunch of 18-year-olds who are making all of their money, and they're going to have to give the kids a fair chunk of the deal. And they're going to hate every moment of it, but that's the fact of the matter. I just said it on the YouTube chat. The NCAA had a chance to adapt, and this is how it plays. Adapt or die. Either you die or you figure it out. And frankly, I'm okay with either one.
Coming up, we've got Rocc and Roll as we head down the stretch of this edition of the Opening Drive on 101 ESPN.
Hey everyone, it's Brooke here, and I want to tell you why I love the Missouri Athletic Club. It's because it really feels like I have joined a community. I love going over to the downtown location or the west location, either one. They always provide such a great experience. I went over to the downtown location for Randy Carricker when he got inducted to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, and it was such a great evening. They always have so many great events over there. Also at the west location, they have great events too. I also love going and playing tennis over there with Scott, playing some pickleball too, or going over there just to work out or have lunch. It's always easy, and they always provide such a great experience, and that's why I love my MAC.
Let's rock. Let's rock today.
For those that were wondering on the YouTube, yes, I was indeed organizing Chick-fil-A packets and sauces behind Brooke as she was doing her commercial.
Which also is why you started the last segment asking about OCD tendencies, and you mentioned that you wanted to organize all the sauce packets.
And now there are.
I want to look, and wow, it's beautiful now, Randy. It's well organized.
Thank you. You know, they're always well organized at Helen Fitzgerald's when they get ready for a football game, like they're going to have tonight.
Man, that's a veteran move that you're doing right there.
You've got the Cowboys and the Giants, and each week the Rizzuto Show and the Fast Lane battle in the Pick'em Challenge. And sometimes they come together to hang out and watch some football and learn from the Riz Show. And Jamie Rivers from the Fast Lane are going to be at Helen Fitzgerald's tonight from 6:30 to 8:30, and you can watch Thursday Night Football, get signed up for some Point and 101 ESPN giveaways, and enjoy a cold Bud Light. That's tonight from 6:30 to 8:30 with Learn and Jamie Rivers at Helen Fitzgerald's on Lindbergh in Sunset Hills. Matthew, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I got just a really short one here, which is just early this morning, or maybe it was late last night. It was just kind of a sad thing to open up Twitter, and if you saw, there was just another former football player who was announcing a horrible disease. Of course, obviously, you had Brett Favre a couple days ago on Twitter announcing he has Parkinson's, and then it was late last night, ex-Vikings quarterback Tommy Kramer got on Twitter to announce that he has dementia, and that he's been dealing with problems there. It was discovered he had dementia a little more than a year ago when he was at the Cleveland Clinic as part of a health and wellness program for former NFL players, and it's just sometimes
we love the game, but the realities of the game plus time hits you every once in a while, and to have both quarterbacks like Brett Favre and then Tommy Kramer hit kind of in the next 2 or 3 days span. Personally, the Favre hits me hard because it's the first NFL player I was ever a fan of, but it's just one of those things that kind of hits you in the game and kind of just downs you for a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. Sad. Tommy Kramer was a really good NFL quarterback. His timing wasn't great to be the quarterback of the Vikings, but he was a good player. And 69 years old, and suffering from dementia. And there was a story yesterday. I think it's a third of all NFL players feel that they're dealing with dementia.
Is that right?
Yeah, a third of all former NFL players.
Wow,
feel like they're dealing with it.
That's
sad. And that's why, honestly, every time I see a player out there that's got the Guardian Cap helmet, I'm happy that there's players out there starting that revolution, because I think, it might look goofy. I don't care. If 40 years down the road you don't have to have this story about you, let's get the Guardian Caps thing going to more and more and more until the technology reaches a level where it doesn't have to look goofy. I don't care. Just be safe.
Absolutely, yeah. And even some of the players like DeMarco sat where Danny is sitting for years, and when he couldn't think of something, he would only half-jokingly say, concussions, when he couldn't remember something. But that's a real thing for NFL players, and that's one of the unfortunate aspects to the 99 Rams. Again, here we are 25 years later, and some of those players are clearly dealing with some issues.
Third, though, that one caught my attention.
A third of NFL players fear they have CTE.
Wow.
Former NFL players.
And honestly, if you guys have never watched Kevin Clark's This Is Football podcast, he does an incredible job. And he had a recent interview with Matt LaFleur, and Matt LaFleur talked about the most incredible player he's ever coached is Aaron Jones. He's like, he was 190 pounds, and he was getting in a car accident 30 times a day, every single week, and he just kept going into it. I don't know, the fact that running backs even play till they're 30 is Herculean.
It's unbelievable.
The fact that we criticize guys for retiring before they hit 30 is insane. The fact that they do that for 6 years and 300 carries per year, I don't know how any of those guys are still standing. It blows my mind.
It's remarkable. Hey, we've got a balloon party coming up with T-Mac. T-Mac and Ajax are both here, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not tomorrow, but they're here today.
Tomorrow
which is good. Tomorrow's Friday.
No Ajax. Maybe T-Mac, maybe us.
Okay, yeah, we'll see.
He'll be up, but you have to tune in to find out.
Yeah, that's right.
And we'll find out eventually
we'll find
at some
out
point.
At the same time, at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
It'll be a surprise for all of us.
Yeah. Great job today by our producer and audio and video engineer, the one, the only Matthew Rocchio. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Brooke, did you have fun today?
Yes. And thank you to Chick-fil-A again for dropping off the chicken minis. Best day ever.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good to hear. Danny Mac,
you were the best, buddy.
Thanks. Cardinal baseball this afternoon. You've got football tonight. You've got a nice, full sports day. We thank you for tuning in, texting in, and being a part of the show. For all of us, until tomorrow morning at 7, have a great Friday Eve, St. Louis.